Hello and welcome to The Real World. This is The Real World Podcast, episode 46 of The Real World Podcast. We're talking all about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and our top 5 favorite movie trilogies of all time. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new here, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos here at The Real World. If you're a movie fanatic like we are, you're in the right place. You're sure to get a lot out of the channel. Got tons of playlists. I do 4K Blu-ray reviews. My big physical media collection back there is a big part of the channel. So if you're into that, you're in the right place. Joining me again on the podcast is Bert. How you doing, man?
Fantastic. How's it going, Cam?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us again. And also, we have our special guest, Josh, returning. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we've got a lot to cover in this episode, so we're going to jump right in as we usually do with some movie news. All right, so we're going to jump into these movie news topics here that we have on this latest episode. First thing is, I'm a big Looney Tunes fan. I don't know if you guys grew up watching Looney Tunes or not, but big fan of Bugs Bunny, and he is getting his own movie, his own standalone film, which is coming in a couple years. It will be another live action animation hybrid, so similar to Space Jam, Looney Tunes Back in Action, those movies that came out in years past. And so, that should be interesting. We don't have any director attached yet. We don't know who's going to be voicing Bugs or who else will be in the movie, if it'll be in the same vein as those previous films or not, but they did announce that is in the works. Are you guys interested in this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like the blend of the live action and whatnot. I mean, so is this the answer to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, except 30 years later or something?
Right. Yeah, it's a different rabbit this time.
Yeah. I mean, it could. I'm interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Did you guys are you fans of Space Jam? Like, I grew up with Space Jam, so I know it's a bad movie, but I still get a kick out of it. And I actually like Back in Action with Brendan Fraser as well. I don't know if you guys are fans of those or not.
I'm not, because I don't like Jordan.
Right.
I did see the movie, and yeah, I mean, the movie's not great anyway. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then the new one was pretty terrible.
The LeBron terrible. James one was, I think, even worse somehow.
I actually I like LeBron, at least on the court.
Yeah.
But that was pretty terrible. So
yeah. But you didn't see Back in Action?
No. I didn't.
Okay. I would recommend it because Brendan Fraser's great in it. It's got Steve Martin as well. So it's got a pretty good little cast there, and it's a fun movie. Josh, what are your thoughts on Bugs and Space Jam and the whole Looney Tunes world?
So I saw Space Jam once years ago.
Okay.
It was kind of funny because I was actually at a friend's house, and if we were at a friend's house, we were supposed to call our parents and ask if we were allowed to watch a certain movie that we hadn't already seen, and I didn't when I watched that one. So I think they already know, but just in case.
You might be.
So I've never seen it again. I didn't see the new Space Jam because of all the China stuff going on, and I didn't seem that interested. But and I've seen Back in Action the one time, but I like Brendan Fraser, so I'm definitely willing to revisit it. But yeah, I grew up on Looney Tunes the show, and then when they brought it back for, I forget how they reframed it. Is it the Looney Show or the Looney Tunes Show?
Yeah,
where it's more like a sitcom.
That's how they retitled it. Right.
Yeah, I'm just as big as a fan of that show, because Daffy Duck especially is hilarious. As the sitcom version of it. Right. So I don't know if they're going to do something more in the vein, if they're going to, go in that like more humorous route, like they did in the Looney Tunes show, or if they're going to just keep it classic like they've done for the other movies. But I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be cool. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully
they do a good job.
Right. Hopefully they get the right people involved and it turns out well. All right, let's move on to our next story, which is Gladiator 2, right? So this movie that no one ever thought would get a sequel is getting a sequel. Ridley Scott is back directing the film. He's also got the original production designer and costume designer coming back. So it's kind of a bringing the band back together. But the new cast members is what's really exciting. First of all, a returning cast member, Connie Nielsen. is coming back, who was great in the first one. But the
So
new
the
cast
same
members
timeline is
include,
going to be. So it's the same timeline. That's what I was curious
yeah,
about. Is this
yeah, it's
like
years later. It's
100
her
years
son
later?
is grown up.
Oh, oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so he's now,
gotcha.
I guess, the emperor or whatever,
Oh,
taking over
okay.
from Joaquin Phoenix. So yeah, that's going to be that. The one who's playing the young emperor is Paul Mescal, who's getting a lot of attention recently. He did that movie After Sun that came out last year. He was nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. So he's going to be the lead. Then rounding out the cast, we have Joseph Quinn, who Stranger Things fan will know as Eddie from the recent season of Stranger Things. He's going to be joining the cast, as well as Barry Keoghan, who we know from recent films like Banshees of Inisherin and The Batman. He's going to be in there. Right, right. And so he's joined, as well as Denzel Washington, which is a huge get. That's a pretty big deal. And then recently it was announced that Pedro Pascal is going to join this cast as well. So pretty decent cast, great actors involved here. Really curious to see, how they continue the story, who they're all going to be playing, that kind of thing. So very excited about this. What are your thoughts on this one, Bert?
Ridley Scott's one of the best directors. Gladiator's in my top 20 of all time. So it's certainly a recipe for disaster. No, I mean, they must have that. I bet they probably have a pretty good story in the works, and no doubt the production value will be absolutely top notch. And then Denzel's not going to sign on to garbage. So actually, I have pretty high hopes for it.
Yeah, I agree. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, hopefully they got a good story here. They may just have the beginning of it like they did last time. I actually just watched a video about that yesterday. Russell Crowe was going through some of his story, but I've only seen the movie the one time, and it was well after its hype time.
Okay.
So I'm not like a fanboy of it, but it is a good movie, and so I'm definitely interested in a sequel. I wasn't expecting it, like you said. I guess everyone wanted it, but I had no idea. So I don't know. Ridley Scott's hit or miss for me, but I have a feeling that, obviously they can't mess this one up. So.
Right. Yeah, that's what you would think. Since it's been this long, there's no reason for him to go back to this unless there's a great story, is kind of what I'm thinking. So yeah, hopefully it's great. I agree. I think Ridley Scott is one of the best ever, but there are some movies he's made that are really not good. Like his Alien prequels, I think, are not good at all. I did not enjoy those whatsoever. So, there's a few, but look, I mean, he did the original Alien, he did Blade Runner, Gladiator. He's done so many movies that I'm a huge fan of. So, yeah, I'll be in line to see this one for sure.
Yeah, music's big too. I mean, that score by Hans is in my top 10. It's one of those that, I mean, I can remember so many times in the car. I would bring the CD and just listen to it when I'm driving, and there's a lot of like non-movie time I spent with that film score. So it's a really heavy hitting score. So if they can bring something like that to the table too, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Hans coming back? Do we know?
We don't know. We haven't heard anything from Hans.
They hardly ever announce that.
He's a busy guy.
Unfortunately.
Right. You never know till later. But yeah, all right, let's move on to next story. Another bit of casting news. Mortal Kombat, the recent Mortal Kombat movie that they released on HBO Max, which I actually quite liked. The ones from the 90s are awful, but the newer one I thought was really, really cool. And so they are developing a sequel, and they have cast the central role of Johnny Cage, who is one of the most popular Mortal Kombat characters, was not in the first movie. They kind of set him up, but he is going to be a major player in the sequel, and he is going to be played by Carl Urban. So Carl Urban, an actor I really like, is going to be playing this big role in the sequel. I don't think it has a release date yet. They're just gearing up to start shooting, so probably sometime next year, I would guess it would be released. But did either of you guys see that new Mortal Kombat movie?
I did not.
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, what did you think of it?
So I maybe watched like 5 minutes collectively of someone playing either Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. So I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know there's finishing moves or that it's like really brutal or anything like that. I can recognize some of the characters, but other than that, I know nothing. So going into it like that, I still really enjoyed it. I didn't think you needed to know a ton of things. I mean, I'm sure there was another layer that those people got that I didn't, that they got out of it. But I enjoyed the movie, and it was kind of gruesome, but it was cool. And so the fights were really cool. So I like Carl Urban, and I guess it makes I don't know why they wouldn't do a sequel. So I guess it's going straight to HBO Max as well, or is this one going to go to the theater?
I'm not
Wait,
sure.
did the last one go to the theater?
It did not. It was a straight to HBO
Okay.
Max during the
Okay.
pandemic release. And
Yeah.
the new president of Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, has recently stated that he does not want to do any more direct to streaming movies. So I'm guessing this will get a theatrical release, at least for a little while before it goes to streaming.
I really enjoy martial arts unless they're done ridiculously, like in the 90s Mortal Kombat films.
Right.
Although if it's for comedy, that's another thing too.
Right.
But you know, like in John Wick 3, like that kind of martial arts.
Sure.
So and then you know when you said Carl Urban, I mean, I'm definitely interested to check it out. He's one of those guys. I don't see him a whole lot in movies.
Right.
But I just actually rewatched all the Star Trek films, and he's just he's really, really good, and almost everything I've seen him in. I even like Dread.
Yeah.
So I'm interested.
Yeah, awesome. Me too. All right, moving on to the next Guy Ritchie film, which is going to be a kind of action thriller. It's about two extractors who must help a negotiator escape from a dangerous situation. It doesn't have a title. They've got that log line, and they've got their cast, which is a pretty exciting cast. First of all, they've got Jake Gyllenhaal. They've also got Henry Cavill signed on, and Isa Gonzalez is on as well. She just did the Ambulance movie for Michael Bay. She was in that. And so pretty good cast. That's your three leads. They're kind of going to be the focus of the film. And Guy Ritchie is a guy I really enjoy. He's a director I think is really talented. I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. doesn't get enough love that he did with Henry Cavill a few years back. And he's made some really, really fun movies. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Your guys' thoughts on the next Guy Ritchie movie?
Well, personally, I'm not a big Guy Ritchie fan. I don't dislike his movies, but I've seen quite a few of them. Stylistically, they're interesting and that kind of thing. There's one of his that I did really like, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
The cast sounds pretty good.
I've kind of like grown into being a fan of him. I think the first film I saw that, at least that I know of, that was his was Sherlock Holmes 2, A Game of Shadows.
Sure.
And
I like that one.
That forest chase scene just stands out among cinematography things. So I really like his style. Sometimes he amps it up a little more, and it is more unique stuff like that. And sometimes it's a little less so like that. Like The Covenant was like that. There wasn't as much. There were some really cool shots, but there wasn't like anything like to that degree or as frequent as some of his other stuff, where he tries to be like a little more unique. But no, I'm definitely interested. I like all those cast members, especially Henry Cavill. So I'm looking forward to this. Is this different from the other movie Henry Cavill's doing with Guy Ritchie?
Yeah, so they just finished shooting I think it's a World War II film, if I'm remembering correctly.
Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, I think.
Yeah. They just finished shooting that one.
So this one's going to release before that.
This one will be after. Yeah. That Ungentlemanly Warfare is about to come out, I think, later this year or next year. And then they're just now about to start shooting this new Extraction kind of film.
Okay.
So, yeah. Good stuff. Looking forward to it.
I looked it up. That other Guy Ritchie film was Wrath of Man with Jason Statham.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see that yet.
It was good. Yeah. One of the few Jason Statham movies I've made it through and enjoyed.
Cool. Good to know. Yeah, and you just mentioned Covenant. That's in theaters still, isn't it, Josh?
Yes. It just came out like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. That was really well done.
Good. Yeah, I want to check that out too. Moving on to some animated movie news. Across the Spider-Verse is on its way to theaters. It'll be here before we know it. And they announced the runtime. It is officially the longest animated film in history. It is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So it just surpassed the record held by 2012 film called Consuming Spirits, which was 2 hours and 16 minutes long. So I hope the kids are ready for a long movie in the theater. get a big bucket of popcorn because it's going to be an epic journey across the Spider-Verse. I'm a huge fan of Into the Spider-Verse. I thought it was just so creative and unique and fun and funny, and had a great mix of characters and voice actors and everything. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the sequel a lot. So Josh, are you excited for a very long Spider-Verse film?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised that it's the longest in history, but I'm also kind of surprised that that's the length that's the longest in history for an animated movie.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because, you know, stereotypically animated movies are for kids, even though they're not. It's a medium, not a genre. But
Right.
but I guess that's why, is because like the kids and the attention spans.
Yeah.
And this is only part one. I cannot wait to sit through 2 hours and 20 minutes of just part one. Like this is gonna
Right.
be so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Beyond the Spider-Verse is already in the works, and it'll be out, I think, in 2 years. They're gonna
Wow,
plan
that's
on
quick for
releasing that.
animation,
Yeah. I
especially
think
something of this caliber.
I think they were working on them simultaneously because they knew they
Oh,
wanted
okay.
them to both come out. So, yeah, Bert, what are your thoughts on Spider-Verse?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm getting ready to rewatch Into the Spider-Verse. I actually have a 3D copy, so I'm gonna
Oh,
watch it in 3D
ooh,
for the first time.
nice.
So and we should plug we got a podcast coming up in about a month. We're gonna go through all of the Spider-Man appearances since 2002.
Absolutely, yes, yes. We are doing a full Spidey cast coming up with the release of Across the Spider-Verse. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. All right, just one more thing before we get into the trailers. The writer's strike has begun. Kind of some negative news. You know, this has happened in the past. It's been, I think, about 15 or 16 years since it happened last, but they're, of course, asking for higher minimum pay, better working conditions. The most interesting thing I thought about this, it's a totally new development, is they're also asking for the rejection of all AI scripts. So apparently studios have been looking into developing artificial intelligence, which will write movie scripts based on previously existing books and IP. And obviously the writers are not very happy about that. So they've asked, you know, to kind of please don't do that, so we have jobs in the future. Really interesting development. I thought that was really just felt like I was living in a sci-fi movie for a second when I heard that, you know. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that's happening that we're dealing with now in our modern technological world we live in, and it's just strange. It's just a strange development. So any thoughts, Bert, on this writer strike and this AI stuff going on?
I hate the strike. It's lame, but I mean I kind of get maybe why they do it. So are you saying that the writers are the ones that are using AI currently?
No, the
Or it's the opposite?
studios.
It's
Yeah, the studios and the executives want to use AI to develop scripts, which would later be rewritten by a writer. But
okay. Yeah,
um,
that makes more sense.
yeah,
I probably heard it wrong. So I didn't know that was a problem. I can't imagine with how much they scrutinize scripts. I can't imagine that would ever be an issue, but who knows? Because who knows what the future holds, flying cars
right.
and whatnot.
Exactly. Josh, any thoughts on this?
Uh, I, I didn't know about it till yesterday. I don't know how long. How long has it been going on
I
already?
think it's just been a few days, maybe a week.
Oh, okay. Well, it'll be interesting, like last time, to see what movies. I guess this is all writers across the board, kind of like last time, except for
Right.
the fringes that are kind of getting in there that people are all the other writers are mad at.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what movies come of this. Like I know Quantum of Solace, at least to me, that was a big standout from last a failure from last time when they were trying to cobble something together during the writer's strike. But I don't know. I guess I don't know what their current pay or working conditions are, so I can't comment on whether they should get it or not. I don't know,
Right.
but I think as far as the AI stuff, I don't know. I think man's going to win out versus machine, and
Right.
whether they get that stipulation or not, I think it could be AI could be a helpful tool, especially like for changing an entire book into a script. I think that's a nice, easy way. Obviously, the person coming after that needs to already be familiar with the story, but they have like a rough draft to go from. And if that's all they use it for, I don't see a problem there. But as far as like, oh, this is the AI script and this is the script we wrote, I think human invention and artistry is going to come out in the end. Whether obviously it may be if it comes to that, it may be a minute before the studios go, yeah, that's right, because they want free.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Should be interesting. All right, guys. Well, let's jump into these two trailers that dropped this week. Two movies I am very excited about, even more excited about now that I've seen these trailers. So first, let's talk about Gran Turismo. This is a video game I've been familiar with for a very long time because my uncle was obsessed with this. He had the steering wheel, he had the pedals, he had the whole deal. So it was a lot of fun to play this as a kid. But yeah, this movie, it looks really cool. I mean, I was kind of surprised, like when I heard they're doing a movie, I'm like, okay, so it's just a race car movie. I don't really get it, but it's a true story about a guy who was a gamer who played this game so often and eventually ended up being a real race car driver. So pretty inspiring, true story. Looks like it's going to be fun. Looks like there's going to be a lot of humor in there. Some really cool shots. I'm guessing they're using drones or something on a couple of these sequences. They looked really, really interesting. Really good transition shot where you're seeing the main character playing in the video game, and then it like transitions to the cars around him now, and you see him on the real track. So some cool visual elements going on there. Really good cast. David Harbour's excellent. I really like him. Of course, Orlando Bloom, who I'm a big fan of as well. It's a great director. Neil Blomkamp is a guy I've been waiting for his next movie for a while. District 9 back in the day, Elysium, Chappie. I actually enjoyed all those movies to varying degrees. I think District 9 is still his best, but I'm just glad to see him doing something again. So yeah, I'm excited to see him doing something different. All those movies he did in the past were all sci-fi films, and this is a grounded, realistic, kind of movie that's a lot different. So yeah, I'm ecstatic. Really, really interested in seeing this one. Bert, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, we don't need another Need for Speed movie, right? So I do like the fact that this one seems a bit more unique.
Sure.
And the director's great, and Orlando Bloom being in there is an interesting choice. So I'm interested to check it out. Again, hoping it's not something like Need for Speed.
Right. Josh, your thoughts on Gran Turismo?
Well, I haven't seen Need for Speed, but I heard it was garbage. So this looks like the Need for Speed movie we should have gotten, especially since it's also based off a video game. Right. Sort of. But no, yeah, the trailer just right away grabbed me. Super cool elements that we're seeing here, and I like pretty much the cast, director, like everything looks like it's going for it. So that's good. I was surprised to see Neil Blomkamp, is how you say it. Yeah. I was surprised to see his name because I mean I like him as a director, but like you said, it is different than what he's done before. Right. So I was like, wait, what? But I don't know. It looks like it's going to be good. David Harbour and Orlando Bloom are great as well. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. Excited about that one. It's coming out this summer. The other one, the one I am ecstatic for, it might be, I mean, obviously, other than Indiana Jones, is probably my second most anticipated movie of the year, Dune Part 2. Dune, I just was blown away by. It's a stunning experience. It's such a unique film. Just it has such a unique feel to it. The music, the visuals, all of it, the performances, it's just so different. And Denis Villeneuve did a great job. He's directing the sequel as well. New cast members include Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, and Christopher Walken. So yeah, I'm ecstatic about this new cast. All great actors. The returning cast, of course, Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, the list goes on and on. So just really, really, it just looks like more of the same, really. I mean, it looks like another, the second part of this big story that's being told. It's epic in scale and, has just, again, some incredible visuals. Visual effects are seamless. So yeah, I'm very, very excited for another Dune movie. And so what are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
I am ecstatic. This was I'd have to relook at my list. It'd probably be between this one and Mission Impossible for what I'm most excited for this year, with Indy like number 3 probably. But and The Flash. Oh my gosh, there's so much coming out. But I cannot wait for this movie. I absolutely loved the first one. I don't know if it was my favorite of that year, but it was up there. It was for sure top 5 if it wasn't my favorite. I'm surprised Josh Brolin is coming back. I guess I'm not surprised. I'm like super happy because I loved his character. I mean, I loved all the characters, but we didn't see him die, so I'm glad that he didn't die.
Right.
And then I feel like out of all this, Christopher Walken I wish they wouldn't have cast him. I don't know. To me, and every single thing I see him in, it's Christopher Walken. And he's gonna I feel like he's just gonna immediately take you out of the movie, and it's gonna be like Christopher Walken. Why is he?
I can see that.
See.
I can. Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like they're gonna dress him up somehow to make him like a lot like Stellan Skarsgård in the original. Like that's Stellan Skarsgård, but you can't really like he's so different looking that it doesn't take you out of it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. What they do with Mr. Walken, because you're right, he has a very specific look and voice and the whole deal. So yeah,
if I can just troll Dune for a minute and just call it Tremors 12. But we talked a little bit about Dune. I don't know what I missed when I watched it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
the music was outstanding. Like, it's very, very, very immersive.
Yeah.
The sound effects, like all the sound is really great. But I just felt like I never really felt like what I saw on screen matched what I was hearing, like what it was building up to. And so, but that said, it's the type of film that I would usually like. So I'm gonna revisit it. But for now, I really just didn't like the first Dune much at all. I don't know why. I'm in the minority, but that's what I experienced when I watched it the first time. Could have been the mood I was in. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it deserves a rewatch because I think you'll get a kick out of it. And I think, it is, that's why the second one's called Part 2, because it is kind of like half a movie. I mean, they did cut the book in half in order to make Part 1 apart, because it is such a big story, so much to set up, so many characters, the whole world they're building there. So I think with Part 2, you'll probably get a lot more out of it.
Well, right. And what's the one about the aliens that the director did that we talked about recently, or not recently, but
Arrival.
Months. Yeah, I always forget the title. Arrival. That was another one that the first time I watched it, I was not getting it. And then the second time I watched it for our podcast, I really liked it, like a lot.
Good.
So maybe it's his style. It just doesn't resonate with me right off the bat or something.
Right. Yeah, it is. Even his Blade Runner movie, which 2049 he made with Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford a few years back. It is a very they have this kind of they're slower paced, they have that kind of more methodical pacing and a lot going on. You have to kind of keep track of a lot of different things. So yeah, they I could definitely see. I've heard people say that they don't connect with his movies right off the bat because they are kind of just very different from your typical kind of, big budget sci-fi blockbuster type film. So
I will say, if there's a lot of characters in a film and they don't necessarily reference them a lot, I sort of lose track of who's who.
Right.
I sometimes just check out and I'm like,
sure.
I don't know who that is. You told me like an hour ago. I can't remember who that is.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Sometimes names too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of names to keep track of.
I don't even think I learned one of the names until this trailer. I was like, oh, that's his name? Because I know the faces and I know who's who, but I don't know their names.
Names, planets, guilds. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff.
A lot of information.
Right. So that's coming out in November. So looking forward to that. All right. Well, that's it for our trailer talk. Now we're jumping into the physical media report. This is something we've been doing on the podcast recently. I'm a huge physical media fan and collector. So wanted to take a look at what's coming up. There's some exciting titles coming up in the next couple months. In June, on June 20th, we will finally get the 4K Blu-ray release of Avatar: The Way of Water. This has been on digital for, I think, a couple weeks now. And my wife got to watch it for the first time last night, which was a lot of fun. She really enjoyed it. So that and the original Avatar from 2009 will both be on 4K on June 20th. So that's one that I'm definitely looking forward to adding to the collection. I think it was shot in 4K, so it's gonna just look amazing. Some more 4K films. Bert, I know you're a big fan of Ronin. Ronin is getting a 4K release, which is going to be great. I don't even know if I think it did get a Blu-ray release, but I never picked it up. So I'll just hold out for the 4K.
Speaking of Stallone Skarsgård.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that'll be cool. Also a Tom Cruise movie, kind of underrated Tom Cruise movie I enjoy, called The Firm, is getting a release on 4K. So that will be interesting. And then a great political thriller I own the Criterion edition of is The Manchurian Candidate from 1964, the original Manchurian Candidate. So that will get its first 4K release in June, as well as Vacation, the original Vacation movie with Chevy Chase is coming out. That'll be released June 27th. And going from a comedy to not a comedy, Les Miserables is also coming to 4K. The Hugh Jackman musical version with Russell Crowe is getting its first 4K release.
Did you guys like Les Mis? I saw it in the theater, but I'm curious what you guys
I'm a
thought
huge fan. Huge fan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh?
I like that's, aside from seeing it in a live on stage with a local theater group, which are fantastic. I've never seen the full thing before, or read the book or anything. I've seen, I think I've seen like a few snips from like the 10th anniversary and the 25th, the concert work version and the regular one. But no, I really enjoyed seeing that movie. I also saw it in theaters. I have a couple nitpicks, just like everyone else does. Russell Crowe, he's competent, but they could have picked someone better. Whatever. Anne Hathaway is a standout for me in that film. She did phenomenal.
Has some weird moments, but I enjoyed it. It does get a lot of hate though, and I'm not really a musicals guy. Sometimes I did kind of wish they were saying some of the lines instead of singing every single word, but
the most musical you can get.
Yeah. Bert, you should check out the Liam Neeson version. It's not a musical. From 1998. Has Uma Thurman, Jeffrey Rush.
It's called Les Mis?
Yep.
Oh,
Les
okay.
Miserables.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah. Check it out.
Know if it had a different title, like sometimes they'll put it under a different name and have it be quite a bit different, but based on anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, you should check that one out. If you're not a musical fan, but you like the story, that's a great adaptation of it for sure.
Okay.
The last movie I wanted to mention that's getting a 4K release, Bert, you told me about this on our Facebook group. It's The Truman Show, which is my all-time favorite Jim Carrey film, one of my favorite movies ever, actually. It is so good. Box office breakdown. I just wanted to cover a little bit of this. The Super Mario Brothers movie surpassed $1 billion at the box office globally, and it is the 52nd film to do so. So very impressive theatrical run. Movies are back, in full force. When a movie crosses that $1 billion mark, I don't think anything has since the pandemic. So pretty impressive.
Not even The Way of Water?
Oh, you're right. Way of Water did. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I was going to say, wow.
No, yeah, it did. You're right. So yeah, impressive stuff. There's obviously probably a dozen sequels and spinoffs in the works right now that we'll be getting over the next couple decades. So looking forward to that.
Awesome.
This weekend we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It has raked in $114 million domestically, $282 million globally already. So it's doing very well, which I'm very excited about because we're about to review that movie. So before we do that, one movie anniversary I had to bring up because we're going to be talking MCU today. It is Iron Man. The first Iron Man movie was released 15 years ago this weekend. So this movie has changed movies. Really, this kicked off the MCU. There was a totally different kind of superhero comic book adaptation than what we had before. And the perfect marriage of character and actor, Robert Downey Jr. In that role is just iconic. So had to bring that up. It's to this day one of my favorites. I vividly remember seeing it in theaters, and I've watched it countless times since. So had to mention that for its 15th anniversary.
Is that one of those little booklets, the digibook things that comes with the movie?
Well, this came with, see up there, that's my box set of phase 1
Okay.
movies.
Oh,
It's
I
the
watched
phase
your
1
video
box
on
set.
that.
It's all
I watched your
all
video on
six
that.
phase 1 movies, and they all have these little
Sweet.
yeah, I don't know, little sleeves that the
Oh yeah.
movies are
Okay.
in. It has artwork on the front and back, you know.
Right.
All of
That's
them have
cool.
that. So it's pretty neat.
That's
Yeah, they
cool.
all like, it's all one big image there. Yeah, I think I've reviewed it. It's been a while. I may do a new review of it, and I have a phase 2 box set over there too. Yeah, it's one of my favorites because the artwork on it's really cool.
Yeah, that box set's awesome.
Yep. All right, guys, let's jump in to our review of the latest Marvel Studios production, Guardians of the Galaxy. This film, you know, we've been eagerly anticipating for years. I mean, I saw Guardians 1 in theaters. It was one of those just kind of another game-changing movie. I feel like after that first Iron Man, the next really big one, I guess, you know, Avengers was a big deal because they all came together, but as far as a standalone, like, new thing that no one had seen before, no one had really even heard of, even comic book fans, like Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, I think I might have heard of them. Like, they showed up in an X-Men comic or something, like, but a very, very obscure kind of team. But you know, James Gunn came in and had his own unique spin on it. Very, you know, much a visionary filmmaker with his own style, his own voice. He's a writer director, so he, you know, pens all of his own scripts and is very involved in the entire process. So that movie came out. I just remember it being a big deal, going to see it with friends over and over again. And, you know, of course, we ended up getting volume 2 a few years later. They all crossed over in Infinity War and, you know, introduced them to, you know, other people like Bert, who had never seen a Guardians movie. I was a little leery of the talking raccoon and the walking tree. You know, just such a quirky idea, weird characters, weird world, but it really, to me, they seamlessly flowed right into the rest of the MCU. And you know, some big things happened to those characters in Infinity War and Endgame, and now we're getting the conclusion of this team of Guardians in this third film. So it very much does feel like the end of a trilogy. You know, it feels like you know, I mean, of course, we could see some of these characters in the future, but for most of them, it feels like we've wrapped up their story and, you know, they're moving on. So, you know, I would say, you know, again, we're talking trilogies today. I think this is my favorite MCU trilogy. I really like a lot of the trilogies they've done, but this one to me feels the most consistent. It feels the most complete. You know, like, I can just watch these 3 films. I don't have to throw in, oh, well, if I watch the Cap movies, I kind of feel like I need to watch Avengers, or if I watch Iron Man, I really need to watch, you know, something else. But this one, it feels, even though, like I said, they have a lot of happens to them in the last 2 Avengers movies, they kind of catch you up to speed in this third film if you haven't seen those, in a way that I think works really well. It's just James Gunn, his creativity's on full display. Some really weird characters, again, bizarre worlds we're going to. But just a fantastic script, a script that is very thematic. It's very impactful. I found myself getting very emotional in several scenes, perhaps more so than any other Marvel movie. And so all of that worked really well. The visuals are just stunning. Some great shots, some shots that will just stand out in my mind for a very long time. Incredible action sequences, great new characters that are introduced and utilized very well. Really just enjoyed this movie as a whole. If you can't tell, I'm a big fan of this third and final Guardians movie. It may be my favorite one. I don't know. After I watch it tonight again, I'll let you guys know. But this might be my favorite. It's my favorite of any of the third entries of any of the Marvel trilogies, for sure. Again, I just think consistency is the key word here. We've got James Gunn all the way through, got the same cast all the way through, and it paid off big time. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie, and I can't wait to see it again. Bert, you want to give us your thoughts on Guardians Volume 3?
Well, I'll let Mantis tell you. Can you see her?
What is that? I can't see
This
it.
guy, you can't even see it. It's a little
Sorry.
Happy Meal toy.
Oh, okay.
so
He just showed up for a second.
Yeah.
There. Okay. Is it Mantis?
There she is.
Nice.
Yep. And she fights. Which this is supposed to be spoiler free, so I won't say
Right.
she fights in the movie.
Awesome.
Man, I'll tell you what, I was pretty blown away by it. Yeah, I you mentioned sort of my history with Guardians. I feel like I didn't want to like Guardians because I didn't want the films to necessarily go in that direction, because I'm like, no, we gotta stay dark, like make this like Zack Snyder's movies, right? Right. So but Marvel has not gone in that direction, and they haven't, other than like the last two Thor movies. They're not just completely ludicrous or something like that, because they but there's quite a bit of humor. It's actually a really great mix of comedy and heart, which is really tough to pull off, and they very consistently do that in the Marvel films and in this universe here with the Guardians. It is one of the best trilogies of Marvel, and maybe the best one, at least right up there, maybe a tie with maybe my second favorite Marvel trilogy. Just the emotion, like you feel a lot of emotion in this movie. Won't say whether I wanted to tear up a little bit. I won't say that because we got to keep it spoiler free. No, but yeah, I was blown away. Kind of reminded me of the last Ant-Man movie. Ant-Man, though, I feel like the first two were pretty good Marvel films, and then the third one was just absolutely epic. And not everybody agrees with that necessarily, but Guardians, I mean, they do have more of an epic quality all around with each film. And then this one was in line with that, but probably the best one of the three. I really like 2 a lot. And I like 1, but I feel like 2 and 3 are above 1 a little bit, in my opinion. But yeah, just like you said, so many interesting characters, just mind-blowing stuff. The artistry, the ability just to think up a universe like this that they put together with these characters and the visuals. I don't even have dreams that are that visually interesting to where I could even try to tell someone, hey, animate this. So yep, I was blown away. I mean, it's probably at least 4.5 stars for me, this third film.
Awesome. Josh, what are your thoughts on Volume 3?
I didn't think about it in the context of like the MCU trilogies until you mentioned that, Cameron. But I think you're right. I think it is one of the best. I think Cap is still my favorite, just because that second and third movie are just so good.
Yeah.
But I do see your point about like as far as like self-contained, because I think you're right. Out of all the movies, maybe Thor would be another exception, just because he's off-world. But I feel like these movies are more like you can just watch just those. You don't have to feel like you have to watch everything else Marvel. Yeah. And you're right, they did do a good job at this time with catching us up if for some reason we hadn't seen Endgame, which I didn't even realize that they did that until you mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, they did, and they did so well. I didn't even notice they were doing it. So it wasn't like, oh, boring exposition that we already know. They did James Gunn did a really good job melding that in there. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't care for the plot so much in the beginning, as far as like why the film is happening. I thought it was like, okay. But the third act just blew me away. So good. And like you said, several instances of emotions. So yeah, really enjoyed it. And I think right now, just because the plot thing in the beginning, I probably put it at 4 stars, but I'm definitely willing to bump that up upon rewatches.
Gotcha. Great stuff. All right. Well, that's our non-spoiler review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, if you've seen the movie, we're going to talk a little bit of spoilers now. So let's get into it. Here's your spoiler alert. Let's jump into Guardians Volume 3 spoilers. So, the plot stuff you're mentioning, Josh, I kind of want to get into that a little because I think that's interesting. I'm assuming you're talking about when Adam Warlock comes into the storyline and really kickstarts the whole thing. Is that what you're referring to? I
guess sort of. Like, we knew he was coming because of the I don't know if it was mid-credit scene or end-credit scene, the last in Volume 2.
Yes.
So we knew we knew he was coming, but the trailer kind of made it seem like he wasn't going to be the main bad guy. So it was like, okay, so what we got? But yeah, I think it wasn't like him directly, but it was sort of like after he left. then I don't remember if it was Mantis, but someone was like, oh, they were after Rocket. And I was like, I don't know that I got that from that engagement. It just kind of looked like he was trying to kill them all. And
It did.
then, yeah. And then it just like for there, it just kind of like, it wasn't character driven. It was plot driven and things happened. It was one of those movies where things happened to them and thus the movie carries forward, which that could, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it just didn't work that much in the beginning.
Okay.
Until like it started to roll a bit and more things were happening. But as far as like this is why the story is happening to them right now, I thought it was a little weak.
I gotcha. That makes sense. We got to talk about the villain here because he, to me, is one of the best villains in comic book movie history. I would put him up there with like General Zod from Man of Steel and Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, to me, he was so compelling to watch.
Yeah.
Such a great performance, so unhinged but very methodical and like had a plan, had a goal, and he was willing to do anything for that goal. I just thought his performance was really, really impressive, and it stood out to me big time as a villain that I just hated, in the best way. So your thoughts on the villain and Adam Warlock? I thought he was actually handled really well because I didn't know how they were going to handle him, if he was going to be the main bad guy or if he was going to be like a minion of the bad guy or what. But he very much had his own storyline weave throughout the film, which I thought worked really well. I liked how he's kind of just like, he hasn't been alive that long. Obviously, he's very naive about a lot of stuff, and I thought that humor played well while also keeping him very powerful and a dangerous kind of character that's out there. So I liked those elements, and I like how Will Poulter played him. But yeah, Bert, what are your thoughts on the villain kind of side of things?
So you're talking about the high evolutionary guy?
Yeah.
I'm often critical in these kind of movies about the villain because I'm like, well, the villain needs to impress me if it wants to vault itself up. And that's one of the reasons why this movie was so good, because Chukwudi, how do you say his name?
I think it's Iwaji. I forget how to say his first name.
Okay. And I had not seen him before. I think he was in one other movie I'd seen, but he just very memorable, very convincing, incredible acting. And it's a part, that I won't soon forget, and effective, and a true madman. And at times I really felt just how menacing he was. You forget about all the comedy in the series and you're like, this guy truly is crazy and is a force to be reckoned with. So about as good as you can get in a Marvel film. That's what I think about him.
I agree. I mean, like I said, I'd put him up there even with like Thanos, and like as far as like just a great bad guy that he was. I felt that he was dangerous. Like he could do the things that he wanted to do, and the things that he wanted to do were really bad. And so I constantly felt like throughout the film that our characters were in danger, which I think is something that's hard to do.
It is.
Yeah. With characters like this that are, and still have the comedy and still that balance, like I think you mentioned, is just really impressive.
Yeah, Thanos obviously is this, super serious all the time, and that's fine. And that character's terrific, especially for a CG character. And this the high evolutionary guy. I mean, obviously it was played a little bit looser at times because he was so maniacal and over the top a little bit. But to me, it wasn't like too far. It was more like he's got to screw loose, almost like when the Joker is portrayed well, right?
Right.
And it was kind of to that level. It was incredible.
I agree. Josh, do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, just exactly what you guys said. High praise for the high evolutionary. I think when people, like, I've seen the comments every so often, like I think the first Venom movie got flacked for this, where they're like, oh, you just gave the villain a god complex and that's horrible writing, whatever. Like, I don't know, to me, like, I can see why they may say that, but to me it's really interesting when characters have a god complex, or something, when villains, I should say, have a god complex. If it's heroes having a god complex, then it's like, oh, well, we're supposed to be rooting for you. But when the villains do, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And especially anything where they take like, or there was a line in the film where like, oh, several species or whatever civilizations consider him God or whatever. And then he had a line, I forget, where he was basically saying he was God. And like anything like that, where it's like, oh, you took like this biblical concept and just twisted it a little bit because you're the villain. Like that's always really intriguing and interesting to see, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And just like you said, the acting was absolutely incredible just throughout the whole thing and the different like phases that we see him in and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of interesting biblical allegory. There was the whole Noah's Ark scene at the end. You guys noticed
Yeah, it
that
did
all the
remind me of
animals
that.
coming on
Yeah.
onto nowhere. A few little things like that just
Yes.
I thought were interesting and fun. So let's just talk favorite moments or favorite scenes if you guys want. I mean, visually to me, I'm always going to go back to that hallway fight, that big long oneer that they do with all the Guardians battling all these creatures.
So
I mean, that
cool.
was just unbelievable. That just looks so cool. I mean, a couple of, freeze frame shots that just look like a comic book panel. That was a lot of fun. So that moment is definitely a huge standout. Rocket's whole crew when he's captured, Lila, Teef, Floor, all those characters were just so adorable and gross looking at the same time. So yeah,
especially Floor.
Yeah, I loved all those characters. And the fact that, I mean, he did it with the first Guardians, right? Making us fall in love with these characters that aren't real. They're CG creations, Rocket and Groot. And now we've got, this whole other crew that we kind of fall in love with, and Rocket's backstory, which was just so impactful and so well done. And, it's interesting that this is Rocket's movie, really, but present day Rocket isn't really in the movie until the very end. But the fact that we're getting his whole backstory is just so compelling and makes us like this character even more. And, we want to see him, survive and wake up. And so, yeah, all that I thought was really, really compelling. Those are some moments that stood out to me. Bert, did you have anything specific that stood out?
Yeah, I'll just give a couple thoughts on it. It's Rocket's origin story, and it's really great to see that. And they basically give us like almost like the cutest puppy dog type creature and then torture it, so that we're really, really sure that we're going, oh no, please no. And then his little voice, oh, he's so cute. So, I mean, it was just very effective. I mean, they play on our heartstrings, they know what to do, but they did it well. And it was well written, for sure. And then just some tremendous comedy moments like the carrot head guy, which reminded me of the broccoli guy from Ant-Man, right? It's different vegetable,
right?
But it was funny. And then there's just some really laugh out loud scenes that, from what I understand from watching some interviews, are a lot of them come out of improvisation, like the car scene where they drop the first F-bomb in Marvel history. I mean, I did laugh out loud. I mean, it's so funny because it's so natural, and you get that these are people that have worked together for quite a few months per film at least. So they know how to play off each other very well. It's very natural. But those are just a few thoughts I had.
Yeah, Josh, any standout moments for you?
I just want to go back to a couple that you guys mentioned before I add any on. The whole, what was the otter's name? I forget Lila, thank you. She was the only one with a normal name aside from, well, I guess Rocket's not really a normal name, but we've accepted it now. So, I still wanted them to escape, especially Lila. And then that did just rip your heart out.
Yeah.
And then, and I guess it was the other two guards that came in after that shot the other two accidentally. I mean, they were aiming for Rocket, I guess.
On purpose, I think. It looked like they purposely were shooting the others.
Oh, maybe they did.
They wanted Rocket to stay alive.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, so that was sad. And then, like, at the end, when he's like, I'm like, just freaking grab the thing and go. Why are you going so slow? And he's like, someone's going to get there. And then he opens the one cage and then collects them all. And then I'm like, hey, open them all.
Yeah.
What are you doing? So I'm glad they rescued them at the end. And that was a really funny, it was like, this is like Noah's Ark. Like I literally thought that as well. I was like, this is so funny.
Yeah.
but that hallway fight scene, that was so good. Everything about this film was just so well done, except the writing part at the beginning. I guess I have to say that because I said it, and I said everything is good. What you just said, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I liked that they gave everyone a moment in that fight. Like, it wasn't like, oh, here's just like Peter and Gamora or whatever. Like they everyone had a moment, and it all melded together so seamlessly and connected together. That was really well done. I think a stand-up for me in the film was Cosmo. I know we've seen it, I guess, her before in like a cameo here or there, but I absolutely love that character. That was so cool. And the telekinesis, I like that it wasn't, I was telling someone this morning, actually, I like that it wasn't just like, oh, we have this character, it's a cameo that now is in the movie a little bit more or whatever. Like, I like that she actually had a purpose and actually was a part of the movie. It was involved in the story. That was really cool. So that's something that always happens with more of like the cameos or like comic book nod kind of things going on.
Right. Yeah, I agree. They utilized all those well. Even, Sylvester Stallone comes back and has a cool role here. And so, yeah, they definitely don't waste any characters. And this is a big cast, right? I mean, the Guardians have grown to, this movie. I think there's, 8 or 9 of them now. So, yeah, I think all of them played a very vital role, and they were able to, again, resolve those character arcs in a really satisfying way. Of course, you guys, I'm assuming, stayed for the post credits. So we know we're getting more Star-Lord. I'm curious if we're going to get, is it the next movie called Star-Lord, or is it him joining the Avengers? Or do you have any theories on what's going to happen with the future of any of the Guardians, or Star-Lord himself, or the other ones?
Well, we already have his origin, right? Because part 2 is a terrific. That's one of the reasons why I like 2 probably the best, is because I love all that Kurt Russell stuff.
Yeah.
But right, is this going to be a standalone film? I don't know. I don't really have any theories.
Yeah. Any ideas, Josh, or what? And something you'd maybe like to see with the characters? I don't know.
Well, I'd like to see that mid-credit scene team. I wasn't expecting, like when I said, oh, he'll return, I was like, oh, good. But I'm not really expecting a full movie or anything, since now James Gunn is on DC. I'm not really expecting to see much from like the Guardians itself as an entity, or at least as it was. So I just assumed he would appear in other Avengers movies, or whenever they start gearing up for that again. But yeah, I expect, based on how they tied everyone's story up, I'm pretty darn sure we're going to see that team, the mid-credit scene team again, which I absolutely like. Just looking at it, I was like, yes. And Groot is huge. That was so cool. Like, I can't wait. It was kind of like the end of Uncharted, like that, when that mid-credit scene, you're like, give me the next movie right now. Let's go. I'm here for it. So same kind of thing with this one. It was like, all right, let's go with this team. I'm ready. But I expect we'll see more of Gamora. I assume, anyway, especially if we're going to see more of Star-Lord. I assume we'll see more of Gamora, especially how they left it off. Maybe, I don't know. But I thought they did a good job with her story and making it like trying to, how do you reconnect her into the team? Like, it seemed very natural.
Yeah, I was glad she was a part of the story for sure, because I feel like the Gamora Star-Lord thing is resolved. I feel like he's moved on, and she's got her family with the Ravagers. So I feel like they've gone their separate ways, and they've kind of made peace with that. I think that's kind of part of what the movie was trying to do, because it's not the same character. I mean, this Gamora is, as we see in this movie, she's a totally different character than the Gamora from the past. So yeah, I don't know if we'll see any more of her. I don't know if we'll see any more Drax or Mantis. Again, anything's possible, but I feel like a lot of these actors kind of feel like, I've played the character for 10 years now, and so they're probably, most of them are pretty well done, ready to move on to new things. But yeah, that new team that was introduced is really cool. So I would like to see more with them as well.
Hey, real quick, do you know why Howard the Duck appears in all 3 movies? What's the tie-in with that?
Well, he is a Marvel character.
Oh, I
And
think you told me that once.
yeah,
Yeah.
James Gunn is just a big fan, and that's the only reason he's in it.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, and he's voiced by Seth Green,
Oh,
which is
really? I
fun
like Seth
too.
Green.
So yeah,
Yeah.
he gets a couple more lines in this one, which is fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for our Guardians Volume 3 spoiler discussion. Let's jump in to our discussion of our top 5 favorite movie trilogies of all time. All right, folks, it is time for our top 5 favorite movie trilogies of all time. This list was very difficult to make. There's so many movie trilogies. I mean, more than I had even, like, you know, when you're thinking about it, you're like, okay, there's like the big ones that you know, and then you start researching and you're like, oh wow, that's a trilogy. I totally forgot they made more of those, you know. So a lot of time and effort went into these lists, and but it was a fun list to make. So you know, briefly, we'll just talk about what a trilogy is. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's 3 movies that, you know, connect in some way. And some trilogies connect more than others. Sometimes it's, you know, the trilogy is one long story you're getting over 3 films. Sometimes it's 3 separate stories with the same characters. Other times there are trilogies out there that are just connected kind of by the fact that they're, you know, thematically similar and they're directed by the same person or they star the same cast. There's all kinds of different ones out there. So we're going to be talking about a lot of them today. But really it's that whole idea of the 3-act structure, beginning, middle, and end. You know, that's kind of what we're kind of talking about here, I think, with most of our trilogies, at least. You know, the first film kind of sets up the story, introduces the characters, builds the world. The second movie kind of challenges our characters and, you know, goes deeper into who they are and their backstories and kind of leaves you wanting more. And then the third one wraps it all up. So, you know, the Guardians trilogy is, I think, a perfect example of that. You know, I enjoy so many trilogies. Again, this was probably the toughest one yet, list wise, to come up with this list. There's so many different ones I wanted to put in there. I kind of wanted ultimately to have, you know, good variety with my lists, and ultimately kind of just came down to which ones are my favorite, which are, you know, in hyperbolic terms, which ones I couldn't live without if I was going to a desert island. These are the 5 I would take with me. That's kind of ultimately how I had to break the list down, because I was trying to think of it in all these different ways, and ultimately I just came down to what my favorites are. So that's kind of how I went about choosing these. Bert, did you have a specific kind of criteria you were looking at, or what?
Yes. Same as you. I wanted some variety, so it's a little different than just strictly my top 5. And another thing, I made a rule for myself that it would have no duds. So if 2 of the 3 are phenomenal, like top 10 movies of all time, but there's one that I just is a, you know, 2-star or something like that, then I didn't include that. So that was just a little rule I used. And then a big one too for me was I stayed away from Marvel, because I mean, we could do a different podcast, I guess, on top 5 Marvel trilogies, because honestly, I could probably put at least 2 or 3 Marvel trilogies in my top 5. And then we're just talking about Marvel the whole time. We do plenty of that. So I just, and you know, you guys, it's fine if, obviously, if you guys did, but I just decided to set those aside. There's several great ones. I mean, Spidey, Cap, Avengers, X-Men, Guardians. I mean, again, probably better served on a different podcast, at least from my standpoint.
Sure, absolutely. Josh, what were kind of your thoughts going into making this list?
So I know you said we're usually more strictly like beginning, middle, end. I did do a little piecemeal here and there.
Sure.
They are still connected, but they're like, it was like if there's 4 or 5 movies and I didn't care, and I really liked 1 and didn't care for 2 and like 3 and 4, then I just cut the second one out and just used 3 and 4.
Sure.
But I did include Marvel. I don't, except for like a couple instances, they're not into my top 5 anyway. But I didn't. I guess the trying to arrange things or be more unique, I didn't intentionally do, but I guess it just kind of worked out that way, where there wasn't like, oh, Star Wars original trilogy, then Star Wars prequels. Like, it wasn't like that. It just kind of, I guess, worked itself out naturally. So
sure.
Nice.
Sure. Awesome. Great. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's jump in with honorable mentions. I know there's a lot we want to mention here. So let's kick this off. Bert and I, we kind of talked about this, and I think we mentioned it to you, Josh. We kind of broke it up in 3 different sections. Trilogies that keep getting worse is what I wanted to start with. So trilogies that, like, the first one is awesome. The second one's like, it's good, but maybe not quite as good as the first one. And the third one's like, oh, that was a letdown. So first one I want to start with was The Mummy. So I'm actually a huge fan of both of these Mummy movies. I think they're great. I mean, the first Mummy is one of my favorites ever. I watch it all the time. Second one I think is almost as good, and then the third one's just terrible. I don't even own it. That's how bad it is. So that's what I wanted to start with. Bert, did you have any in that category of trilogies that keep getting worse?
That's a really good example, the one you just used. I've got a couple. One of them is the Dark Knight trilogy, which I went. So for me, the first one's a 5-star. The second one's 4.5, 5-star film, and then the third one drops to about 3 stars. I like it, but it kind of lost the magic. So that's one example. But again, as a trilogy, again, these are honorable mentions because still the trilogy as a whole is great, you know. But
right.
And then another one is the Die Hard trilogy, and I kind of go 5-star, 4-star, 3. And 4-star maybe is a little generous for part 2. There is some bad acting in that movie, and a lot of people think it's terrible. But to me, they just get worse as they go. I didn't really dig the third one much at all.
Okay, yeah, that's a good pick, Bert. Josh, did you have any in that category?
As I was looking through it, not really. Maybe there's some down there beyond what I would say I should probably use as honorable mentions. That would, but for me, one I'll mention later, I guess. But as a series, the trilogy I picked, well, I'll just say it's Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'll revisit that one later. But technically, I would say that is one, even though it's not going to be an honorable mention, it is one that gets worse as you go.
Okay. Interesting.
Another one. Maybe this is a hot take. I don't know, but as the years have gone on, I've kind of more and more felt this way, and I guess right now I'm like officializing it in my mind. The Star Wars prequels, I would say, are like this. And initially, when I watched them, I thought it was the other way. Like, oh, Revenge of the Sith is the best one. But as I'm watching them more and more and learning more and more about them and just revisiting them and stuff like that, I just, my love for the first one just grows and grows and grows. And maybe it's just Liam Neeson. I don't know, but Liam Neeson and Darth Maul. But it's just so good. I don't know. I really love it. And then the second one is really good. The love scenes are kind of but that's what everyone says. And then the third one, I don't know. For me, I think, sadly, I don't know why, but it just kind of boils down to it was just too pretty of a lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin. And like if they had done something like what the sequel trilogy did with the lightsaber fight, we'd probably be going, yeah, this is Revenge of the Sith is the best one. So I know it's kind of weird to just make that the reason, but I don't know. That's just what I got.
Gotcha. Let me look at a couple more of these. Unbreakable, Split, Glass. These are another one that keep getting worse as they go. Even though I like all of them, I own them all. But first one to me is easily the best one. Definitely Taken. I mean, the first Taken is like such a great action film, and then just 2 and 3 are like terrible. But I still own them for some reason. And then Hobbit. I feel like The Hobbit, I really like the first Hobbit movie. And then the second one I like, but it's not as good. And then the third one is like just a weak ending. So those are the other ones I had in that category. Bert, did you have any more in that category or no?
No, but I agree with The Hobbit. I actually like Taken. It may slightly go downhill, but I think I saw all 3 in the theater, and I enjoyed them quite a lot, all 3 of them. But does go down slightly though, so I'm kind of there too.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, let's move on to trilogies with one dud. So, like you were talking about, Bert, trilogies that, like, man, 2 of these are great, and then the third or the second or whatever one is just not as good. Cars for me. I really like the first Cars. Second Cars, not good. Third Cars, I like. Third Cars, I actually think is really underrated Pixar movie. I really enjoy that one. So that's the one I wanted to start with. I'll do one more before I throw it over to you. Transformers. The first Transformers I really enjoy. The second one I do not enjoy. The third one I think is better. So that's another one right there that one dud out of the three. Josh, did you have any in this category you wanted to talk about, or?
Well, I think I circumnavigated the duds with other sequels.
Okay.
So I can mention a few, but I think I don't think I really have one where the ones I picked anyway out of the series where there was a dud.
Okay.
Indiana Jones, the second one, I don't care for.
Okay.
And the fourth one, I don't care for the ending. So I guess I picked 4, but I guess you could say that was the dud.
Sure.
I don't know. Dud's a kind of a strong word to say. The second How to Train Your Dragon was a dud, but it was I didn't care for it as much as the other two.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was a dud though. It was still good.
Gotcha. Bert, what about you?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Transformers. That was on my list. I completely agree. 1 and 3 are good. 2, not so much.
Yeah.
Another one I'll throw out there. I recently rewatched Star Trek, as I mentioned, and I love the first 2. I couldn't believe.
I forgot.
I remembered liking Beyond, but it is a dud. A complete, not complete. I mean, I give it like 2.5 stars, but I was so disappointed in that one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, same.
Couple more for me. Wolverine. I think the first one is awful, but the next 2 are so good. That's one of those trilogies that, like, man, if that first one had just been a little better, it could have been in the list.
First one.
Yeah, I know.
Most
My wife
don't.
enjoys it a lot. And then let's see here. Oh yeah, so Blade. I like the Blade trilogy, but the third one is just atrocious. The first 2 are really cool, great action movies. Second one's by Guillermo del Toro, but the third one is just, it really falls off hard. Also Men in Black. I really like the first Men in Black. I don't like the second one very much, and the third one I think is better. It's still not as good as the first one, but it's better than the second. So
really good pick. Number 2 is awful. You're absolutely right with that series. Yeah.
Right. And then a trilogy that I just wish this third one had been better again. X-Men. X1.
Oh, really?
Great. X2, awesome. X3, I just feel like is really, really awful.
Throw it away.
Yeah, I don't even watch when I rewatch them. I don't watch the third one.
What?
I go straight to the Wolverine.
That's garbage.
Yeah,
you like it?
Yeah,
I'm at least 4 stars on it.
There's cool ideas in it.
Wait, why?
But yeah, I'm not a fan.
Why do you like that?
Why is it 4 stars? I just more of the same from all the characters that I like, and good action, and I don't mind the ending. I think it's pretty cool. I don't really know why people dislike it so much. Why do you dislike it so much?
Well, they got a new director, which was a big problem. And to me, it just didn't even feel like the tone was off for me.
Really?
The character deaths had no impact.
Except to make you mad.
Yeah, the story to me, it didn't. There's 2 storylines going on. They never quite meld together. Yeah, I thought a lot of the action was really lame. All the new characters I thought fell totally flat. Yeah, I have a lot of problems with it. But we'll have to do a whole X-Men podcast one day and hash it out.
Ranking them, yeah, that would be fun.
Right. Okay, I think that's it I had for the 1 duds. Did you have any more, Bert? Or
I do, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll go through them quickly. Okay, I much to my amazement, I thought for sure I almost started my list with this trilogy, and thank goodness I rewatched it. Back to the Future. The second one, I was pretty annoyed with it. I mean, I remembered thinking, yeah, that one's not so good, but I mean, I generously give it 2.5 stars, and 1 and 3 are so good. I was just so disappointed, so I couldn't put it in my top 5. But 1 and 3 are so good, it's an honorable mention.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't hate 2 as much as you, but it definitely is a step down.
I mean, there's some good, but there's some really annoying parts in it, where like the jacket that he wears, and I don't know, I just could reel off a few other things, but it just drags the movie down. So it's just like a balancing act, and then I'm just like, not so good.
I've got See, this one was going to be, but it's kind of not now because I've watched a new cut of Spider-Man 3, the editor's cut. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's only on it's actually not in this set. My brother has it, and it's got a big box set. It's the only place you can watch it.
Because I have the Blu-ray and it's not the editor's cut, so I'm trying to get a copy.
It's only in a specific box set they put out a few years back. But it's well worth seeking out because it really does, I think, enhance them. It doesn't make huge changes, but it makes little changes that end up making a big difference. So if you can watch the editor's cut, I recommend that. Theatrical cut, not a big fan of, but the first two Spideys are awesome. Here's an interesting trilogy. The original Star Trek trilogy. So Trekkies or Trekkers, whatever you prefer, considered Wrath of Khan, which is the second one, Search for Spock, the third one, and Voyage Home, a trilogy, because they're really telling one overarching story in the middle of that 6-film kind of saga they did.
That's interesting.
So if you watch 2, 3, and 4, you've got like a complete story. And they're really good. Just the third one isn't quite as good as either of the other ones. So had to bring that up because I do enjoy a bit of Trek. That's it. I think that's it for my trilogies with one dud. All the rest of mine I enjoy all of them. Do you have any more that you wanted to bring up?
I've got 3 more. I'll do them quick here. So the Matrix. I could put this one in the goes downhill as it goes, but the third one it's the inevitable result. The third one, I just didn't find it a lot of it engaging. Like, that is what we were leading up to, but it just, like, in the fights between Smith and Neo, just, I don't know, it just felt like it was their duty to make this third film. And they made 2 and 3 back to back, but 2, for reasons I've said before, it's a 4.5 star film for me. But
I'm opposite of you. I prefer 3 to 2, but
gotcha. Right. Yep. And then Rush Hour. I feel like Rush Hour 1 and 2 are pretty funny and fun, and the third one, not so much. Oh, you got it right there.
Yeah. This is a trilogy. I even like the third one. I know a lot of people don't like the third one as much, but I get a kick out of all 3. So
right, gotcha. And then the newer Jurassic movies, 4, 5, and 6. As you know, I didn't like 5, which is called Fallen Kingdom. I really don't like that. It's something like a 1.5 star on that. I just, not great. And then the last one is, I got to bring in some horror here. The Paranormal Activity. The first 3 films. So I'm putting those 3 together, if you will. They're all connected, like all 6. I think I've got the whole box set, and I really like all those. They're kind of a one-note thing, but I enjoy them. They're kind of fun in some ways. But the very first film to me is just not that engaging. It's kind of boring and nothing really happens. And then starting with 2, they kind of picked up a little bit and that kind of thing. So 1 is the dud for me in that series.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Great. So now we're moving into honorable mentions that we really like all the movies in these trilogies. And so I'll kick us off with Evil Dead. Big fan of all 3 Evil Dead films. This one might be one that keeps getting better. Actually, for me, really like those. A lot of fun. Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez trilogy is really, really cool. I will bring up Star Trek, the new Star Trek, the Kelvin timeline. I think Beyond is great. I really enjoy that one. I actually like it more than Into Darkness, which I feel like is Into Darkness is fine. But if you've seen Wrath of Khan, it's not as good as Wrath of Khan, I feel like.
And I think it's the other way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, so a lot of differing opinions on Trek here. But I like all 3 of those. You mentioned How to Train Your Dragon, Josh. I think all 3 are like just top-notch movies. I mean, I don't even know which one's my third one might be my favorite. I don't know. They're all really, really good. And then one that doesn't get brought up a lot is Maze Runner. Maze Runner, I feel like all 3 of these are really solid. Like, they're not best movies ever, best sci-fi movies even, but they tell one story across 3 movies really well. And I read the books, and I still like the movies, even though they're quite different. I just wanted to mention those as well. I've got a few more, but Josh, you want to give us some of your honorable mentions?
Yeah, just to echo what you said about Maze Runner, that does not get enough praise. And that's one where I think each movie does get better as well. Another one that's like that is the new Planet of the Apes movies. Yes, those are really good, and they just keep getting better as well, especially the third one. That's an amazing movie.
Totally agree. This
Um,
was a very, very close to being in my top five. I mean, it was
mm.
like, it was a hard cut, but yeah, ended up not making it. But this would be probably like number six or seven.
Yeah, yeah. Other ones I had were uh, I've only seen a certain amount of the Harry Potters, but right now I have one through three as being really strong movies. Toy Story, I did one, three, and four. So I guess you could say two's a dud, but that seems a little strong to say two's a dud because it's still good. But I
Yeah,
think one, three, and four are just top notch.
this is
Hard to beat.
another devastating cut I had to make because
Mm,
to me, one, I mean, four, I do prefer four. Like four is my favorite one, but the first three tell that Andy story so well that I
yeah.
was like, man, that is such a good trilogy that I have to not include. But yeah, Toy Story is awesome.
Yeah. I also threw Guardians in there now, having seen the third one. Just what we said before, insert here.
Right.
The Lord of the Rings, not The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. All three of those are excellent films. I can't tell you how many times just the second one is on TV all the time, always at Helm's Deep. I always see it at Helm's Deep. You can't catch it on TV at any other point. Um, yeah, but oh, and How to Train Your Dragon, like you mentioned as well.
Great, great. Bert, let's throw it over to you.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the one that was closest to making my top five that didn't, which is Terminator 1, 2, 3. Believe it or not, Terminator 1 is the one that I don't like as much. It's not a dud though, but I'm a huge fan of 2, huge fan of 3. Most people hate part 3. I don't know why. I think it's great. Next one I'll put up there is the X-Men, the first 3. I think those are all really good. Another trilogy is the Narnia films. Those are all very good. Jurassic, the first 3 Jurassic movies, I like all 3 of them. It almost made my top 5. And the Fallen trilogy, which you may be like, what? You know, they're I think they're better than average action movies. Sure, they're not terrific, you know, they're not 5-star films, but there's so many dumb action movies. It's so painful. Your average action movie is such a throwaway film that I actually like all 3 of those. And the actors that are in them. So I had to mention that as an honorable mention. And the last one I've got is the first 3 Mission Impossible films, which the first one and the third one are, I'm like 2.5, 3-star. But the second one, as you know, I think is like a 5-star film, and most people hate that one. So there you go.
Yes. Defending bad movies, I think that needs to come up next time because a lot of people don't like MI2. I like it. I don't like it as much as you, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. So
right. Yeah.
We'll be doing a Mission podcast this summer when Mission 7 comes out. So be on the lookout for that. All right. I've got a couple more. Mad Max. Huge Mad Max fan. Those first 3 Mad Max movies are awesome. Mel Gibson, George Miller does a great job. Fury Road's the best one. So that kind of made me go, well, the 4th one's the best. I'm probably not going to include the trilogy, but it's still a great trilogy. One that I just finally finished watching, the Cornetto trilogy by Edgar Wright with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Again, these movies they're not playing the same characters. It's not like one of those like, it's all one big story. It's all separate movies, but they're all connected because they're made by the same director, same actors. The kind of theme of friendship is all throughout them, you know, and they each take on a different genre, you know, horror, action, and kind of like apocalyptic film. So these are really fun. The third one, actually, The World's End might be my favorite one. I had a blast watching it last week with my brother. So yeah, I had to bring up that trilogy because that's a unique kind of trilogy that I don't think gets talked about very often. A really old trilogy that I really enjoy. It's actually based on a true story, which I don't know many true stories that get a trilogy. It's the Samurai trilogy. This is based on the life of Musashi Miyamoto, who was a samurai back in feudal Japan. It's 3 really good movies made way back in the 50s. Great films. Highly recommend. This is the Criterion set I have here, which is really nice. So recommend that. The Before trilogy. This is a trilogy by Richard Linklater. You know, it's got Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy, He does a great job with these movies. These are just movies about two people. Basically, the whole movie is them talking. It's not action packed by any means, but it's just a great story. You see them at three different times in their lives. I think they're made about 10 years after one another. So you get to see them over a long period of time and how their relationship develops. And it's just really well done, really great filmmaking. So I highly recommend those as well.
I'm surprised it's not in your top 5.
Yeah, all these were such difficult cuts to make. Bourne was the last one I had to mention because the Bourne trilogy is one of the best action trilogies ever. Just these 3 movies are great. I think the sequels are Legacy's okay, and then that last Jason Bourne movie I thought was a huge disappointment, huge letdown.
Yes.
But those first 3 are just excellent action movies. So that's it for my honorable mentions. Did you guys have any more?
No.
I have a couple more.
Okay, go for it, Josh.
Bourne, like you said, that was very close. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was very close. That one was hard to cut. The sequel trilogy, I know a lot of people hate. I enjoy it, whatever. Indiana Jones, I did 1, 3, and 4, as I mentioned earlier. So that one was close as well. And then the last 3 I had were like, and I'm like, wait, that wasn't in the top 5. Was X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, and I did Dark Phoenix. That one, like if I could do 5.5, it'd be right there.
Those are good.
Yeah, and then the Captain America films, and then Zack Snyder's trilogy.
Yeah. See, I didn't include Zack's because they're calling it a trilogy. It has a box set that says it's a trilogy, but it was never intended to be a trilogy. So I didn't include that. But I did consider it just because those 3 movies are some of my favorites of all time.
That's Warner Brothers trying to name it and claim it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
If we say it loud enough, long enough, maybe they'll stop.
He just had the Full Circle event. Did you hear about that? He showed them all in theaters last week.
I watched part of the.
Yeah, you sent me those commentaries he did with them.
Justice League one,
yeah. He did commentaries on all the movies. They're all on YouTube. You can watch them right now. Commentaries on all the movies and a Q&A afterwards. So I highly recommend those for any Snyder fanatics out there. All right, guys. It is time to unveil our top 5 movie trilogies of all time. Who wants to kick us off?
I can if you want.
Go for it, Josh. What do you got in number 5?
So what barely edged out those X-Men prequels would be the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, 1, 2, and 3. For me, it's just like sentimentality and nostalgia that just made this one impossible to cut. The first, like all these are excellent movies. It does kind of go down as you go, as I mentioned earlier. But there's things I like about each of them as well. Like I think the music in the third movie is just incredible. I think that's my favorite out of all those Pirates of the Caribbean. Zimmer's score is just phenomenal, especially that 10-minute song at the end during the climax. I can't remember the name of right now, but excellent movies.
Great pick. I'm a big Pirates fan. Bert, what are your thoughts on Pirates?
Yeah, I think I own them all. I need to go back and rewatch them. Honestly, it's been years, but the first one, I mean, for a while it was my top 20 of all time. I don't know if I put it up there that much now, but it's just so unique and yeah, I mean, its uniqueness, I think, is the draw on top of all the humor and action that we get and all the sword fighting and it's very, very clever script. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, great high seas adventure films for sure. All right, Bert, you want to give us your number 5?
Oh, sure. My number 5 is Toy Story.
Nice.
And,
okay, great.
Trying to get that variety in there. I mean, they're basically all perfect movies to me. And I do like 4, but I went with the first 3 on this, and they're just obviously they're all so funny and well acted and good stories and just visual treats. Essentially, I mean, the first one revolutionized animation back in 95. I remember when it first came out. I was working at a theater when it came out, and people were just blown away. They're like, wow, it's so realistic. I can remember when Siskel and Ebert reviewed the first Toy Story, and I think it was Ebert was talking about how was incredible that these little toys are on this bed and it's animated, but you can see the tiny little holes of the bed, where you would see it, if you were that close up in real life. It was just so realistic.
Yeah.
And of course, we've come a long way since then, but yeah, I mean, it was just just revolutionary. And if I'm going to pick a trilogy for that, the lighter side, and something like that, I would go with Toy Story. So, and I think they get better as they go. The first one is a little too dark, maybe. It's still a great film, but I just throughout pretty much the whole series, they just keep getting better and better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, those are excellent movies. Like I said, a difficult cut for me because that's my childhood. Grew up watching all those. Grew up kind of with Andy. Like I'm around his age in those movies, so that's kind of I remember that third one, seeing that in theaters, and just wow, that was like a gut punch, super emotional experience. So yeah, that was a great pick that I was very close to putting in mine. But Josh, do you have any thoughts on Toy Story you wanted to throw out there? Just wanted to make sure.
Just echoing what you guys said, basically. They're not a dud in the bunch, literally.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move on to my number 5, which is the Man with No Name trilogy. So these are 3 films by Sergio Leone, starring Clint Eastwood, spaghetti westerns from the 1960s. A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Iconic films that kind of revised the whole Western genre and kind of revived it. In the 50s was kind of like the heyday of Westerns, and in the 60s they kind of started to drop off. But in Italy, these filmmakers started catching on to this cool kind of American genre, and they kind of revolutionized it. They brought a sense of reality to it that hadn't been there before. These films are pretty gritty, dark, violent films, which more accurately represent what the Wild West was really like. So just incredible direction. Sergio Leone went on to direct several other great films I'm a big fan of, and just the way he would shoot the landscape, and the way he would shoot these gun duels and these things. Just he would build suspense in really unique ways, the way he would edit. And of course he's working with Ennio Morricone, who's one of the best composers of all time. That iconic score that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has, that everyone knows as soon as you hum it or whistle it. Great performances by, again, Clint Eastwood, and kind of the movie that made him a superstar. Van Cleef is great in these as the bad guy, and then Eli Wallach, of course, shows up in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as well. So great performances all around. I like how quiet and still they can be, and yet how big and explosive and action-packed they can be as well. They're really just, again, expert craftsmanship as far as the technique of the way they're using the camera, and close-ups, and he's known for that kind of thing as well. So yeah, just movies that I've watched many times before, and will continue to watch. I'm actually got one on in the background right now. So really great movies. All right, let's move on to Josh, your number 4.
So my number 4, from this point on, from 2, 3, and 4. It was like trying to figure out which one to put where. It was almost impossible. Number 4, I have Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. And for me, I think the second one, I think, is the personally I like the least.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. Nothing against Heath Ledger. He was phenomenal. I think for me, like the first one, like they each get lighter in tone, not tone. The look of the film. Like the first film was very dark looking, and then by the third movie, we're in the daylight. The first film with Batman Begins, it's just Batman basically being awesome, and it was so cool. And then and the reason I didn't care as much for the second one is because he's not being as awesome in that one, because he's the loser. He does win, but he's not. It's Joker's movie basically.
Yep.
And then when we get to the third one, we get that like Batman, like that nostalgia was somehow built in. like, oh, he's a has-been, he was thing, and now he's coming back and he gets to be awesome again. So I don't know. I can watch those movies, at least the second and third one, anytime. Like, and it just hearing a little bit of Zimmer's score there.
Yeah.
Like just listening to, I think it's Molasses or something, or I guess that was Zimmer and I don't remember his name. The other composer. Yes, thank you. I don't know who did what, but just hearing a little snippet of that film is enough for me to go, okay, I need to go watch it. I need to watch it again. It's so good.
You know, it's funny, when the first time I watched the third one, you know, Bruce Wayne is like decrepit, he's like limping, right? I thought it was a joke. I thought, oh, he's doing this as a put on. I just couldn't believe that he'd let himself go. Like, what have you done to yourself, man?
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a good explanation as to why you like him the way you do, as far as which ones you like the best and that kind of thing. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. Solid trilogy. I've got it up there on the shelf, and it is you know, groundbreaking in many ways. It you know, the comic book genre was, you know, revived by that whole, you know, kind of gritty, realistic, grounded take on the comic book character that hadn't really been done that way before. So yeah, excellent choice. All right, Bert, we're on to your number 4. What do you got?
And I've got the Bourne trilogy as the first 3, of course.
Right.
I actually liked the fourth one that didn't have Matt Damon in it.
Yeah, Jeremy Renner.
Quite a bit. Yeah, Jeremy Renner, right? Who you're a big fan of. But yeah, I mean, this is just I just really like the style of this film, and they're all done really well. Again, as action movies, there's so many bad ones, and these just stand out. Interestingly enough, the villains don't actually get a lot of, if you watch these and pay attention to like the amount of dialogue the villains get, they don't actually get a whole lot. So there's not even a lot of character stuff. And it's amazing yet how effective they are. Like, I don't know how the you know, Doug Liman, and I think it's Paul Greengrass directs the second 2. I don't even know how they pull that off, but the villains are very effective, especially in the first 2. You know, Carl Urban, you know, the second one, he's very memorable. And Brian Cox is good. There's a lot of great supporting roles, not just Matt Damon. But I just enjoy all 3 of these through and through. The third one slightly drops, but and there's really clever writing. The score is so punchy and fun. It's one of those I've listened to many times away from the movies. And then the second one, actually, it's not just like, you know, some trilogies, you don't really find a lot of new music as it goes through. But I noticed, I rewatched all 3, and the second film, I mean, there's all kinds of, or there's at least, you know, a couple new themes that are just beautiful themes that John Powell came up with. So that's impressive as well. Just a great sort of tightly edited, smart action films that kind of challenge you as a viewer. So that's my number 4.
Great one. Yeah, Bourne, I'm a big fan of. I definitely saw the third one in theaters, and I think that's why it might be my favorite. I think, you know, whenever you can end a trilogy really well, that makes it like a great trilogy, because I think that ending anything is very difficult. And I found that all the answers to all the questions I had to be very satisfying. I think the third one has maybe the best car chase in it. Really like that car chase a lot. So yeah, all 3 of them though are just excellent. A great character, a great story. I've read the first Bourne Identity book as well, which was written like long time ago. So it's, you know, a different era, different type of thing, but it's very good adaptation. And both Doug Liman and Paul Greengrass did a really good job. They ushered in that whole kind of shaky cam idea, which really, you know, makes you feel the action. It puts you in the action. I feel like other movies did that in kind of a negative way, you know, it kind of took it too far. But here it works really well, because it's all, you know, character focused, and, you know, puts you kind of in his shoes a little bit, which is fun. So yeah, big fan.
I should mention, since you mentioned those, you know, Matt Damon does his own stunts, obviously, which looks really great, and he hadn't done that kind of thing before then. And he really did learn martial arts for it, and you can tell.
Wow.
Yeah. And the way it's kind of jerky cuts, you know, the edits are kind of handheld cam, and I feel like it really works because you can still kind of tell what's going on. But honestly, if you're really in a fight like that, it's not going to be, it's not this some of the martial arts you see where they're sort of standing far apart and you can see every hit and everything, and it looks a little too choreographed.
Yeah.
It just feels really gritty and real. It makes the audience member feel like you're in the middle of a fight, like you're between the two guys almost sometimes.
Right.
So it's incredible.
Yeah, great stuff. Anything you want to mention about that, Josh?
I'm just sad I couldn't put it in my top 5. This is one of my favorite trilogies. And I guess similar to Batman is the reason I like the third movie the best, is because like in that one, it's the most Matt Damon kicking butt or like outsmarting the bad guys. Anytime like you just have someone like that that's just outsmarting the bad guys is just super fun to watch. So yeah, like that whole like, oh, you know that if I'm in your office or whatever, like that whole bit is just so good. And the characters, it's such a character driven, so character heavy of a film. And like you said, with the villains, just doing an excellent job with less is more, I guess. Yeah. And this is the first movie that where I realized who Brian Cox was or whatever. Like I'd seen him in a couple of things like The Rookie. But this was definitely made him stand out in my mind as a great villain.
He's the Burger King guy too. Can you pick up on that in his voice? I had to look it up, and it is him. He that guy.
Oh, really?
He does commercials for Burger King. I heard his voice. And I'm like, is that Brian Cox?
That's
great. And
oh wow,
sure enough, it's him. It's his voice. See, that's like a voiceover.
Wow, that's great. I love it. All right, on to my number 4. My number 4 favorite trilogy of all time is the Irish Folklore Trilogy. So these are 3 films made by a studio called Cartoon Saloon, which is based in Ireland. They actually just recently did, for you Star Wars fans, Star Wars Visions Volume 2 just dropped on Disney Plus, all these short films by all these animated studios all over the world. And they did one called Screecher's Reach, which if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. It's great. But these 3 movies, again, it's one of these trilogies that this isn't all telling one story. These are 3 separate stories that are based in Irish mythology. So the first one is called Secret of Kells. Second one is Song of the Sea. And the third one is Wolf Walkers. All of them are just beautiful to look at. First of all, the stunning animation, hand-drawn. It's all just meticulously crafted, beautiful looking 2D animation. Great voice acting, great voice casts. Brendan Gleeson is in one of these. He does a great job. It has, the kind of very whimsical fantasy stories. They can be scary at times, but they're all family friendly. But it's a trilogy that I've just gotten so much enjoyment out of. The first one, The Secret of Kells, I just rewatched a few days ago. I was doing some research. The Book of Kells is a real collection of the 4 Gospels that monks at a monastery in Ireland compiled in the 8th century at the Abbey of Kells, which is why the movie's called Secret of Kells. So there's some historicity to these movies as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, I highly recommend them. They're kind of hard to find, unfortunately. They're not all just like streaming anywhere, but if you can track them down, they're like these little hidden gems that if you find them, I'm sure you'll get a lot out of. So yeah, highly recommend them. They're all also directed by Tom Moore. So the same director is at the helm for all 3 of these movies. And he just does a great job telling these stories, just really unique looking, even in the world of animation. We, I think, become so accustomed to Disney and Pixar and kind of how those movies look. But this one is very different and very, very just gorgeous to look at. So yeah, I recommend those highly. Have you guys seen any of these?
Unfortunately not.
Gotcha.
I remember you talking about them though. It's come up before on the podcast and they sound interesting. Yeah.
Like I said, they're kind of hard to find unless you get this box set, which is on Amazon. This is actually the only way you can watch Wolf Walkers unless you have Apple TV Plus. But if you have Apple TV Plus, you can actually watch Wolf Walkers right now as an exclusive release to them. So yeah, nice. That's my my number 4 pick. All right, Josh, what is your number 3?
So my number 3 is 007. In this case, some of Daniel Craig's movies, Casino Royale. I skipped Quantum of Solace, did Skyfall, and then No Time to Die. So all those movies, it's really hard for me just in the 3 movies to pick which one I like more, because they're all so well done. They're all so engaging. They're just amazing movies. The Casino Royale is just a perfect film. Skyfall, that was my first Bond film, and it was definitely a unique introduction to all things James Bond, because it's the least, I would say it's probably the least James Bond-y. The stripped down technology. It does feature his car though, and then kind of like goes into, I guess, more of the origins and leaves you off with how we normally have seen Bond in other iterations. Or the Bond world, I should say, with M and all that. And then No Time to Die. I absolutely love this movie from, I don't know, what did it come out, 2021, 2022? So good. I've rewatched it probably like three different times. It's just, the only weak point is the villain, but it doesn't even matter because the rest of the movie is just so good. I don't know. I absolutely love them. Great movies.
Great. Yeah, good picks. I really like all those too. Those would definitely be my top 3 of his. Yeah, like you said, Casino Royale is a great introduction, reboot of the whole character, which had never been done before. And this is the longest running movie franchise in history, so that's pretty impressive. And yeah, Daniel Craig just brings something so unique to the role. Feels so different from what's come before, which I think is what you need with a character like that that's been around for so long. Yeah, Skyfall is one of my favorite movies ever made. I think it is stunning cinematography. Roger Deakins shot it, and he just knocked it out of the park. The lighting and just, yeah, it's stunning to look at. No Time to Die. I am a huge fan of No Time to Die. I actually like the villain in that movie a lot. I think Rami Malek did a really good job, and I like the way he ties into the story and other characters. I think that was really strong, really well done. So yeah, big fan of all of Daniel Craig's movies, but those 3 definitely are his best ones. I would agree.
Oh, and I guess I skipped. Sorry, I guess I skipped Spectre too. I guess that's how not great of a movie was. I forgot all about it. No, I did like that movie. I just totally forgot it existed. Sorry, what were we saying, Bert?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I need to watch a couple of those. The Bond movies are decent. I'll tell you, I think that Pierce Brosnan was the best Bond. I don't know what you guys think.
Bond,
I think he's the most iconic.
He's the most suave Bond. I feel like every Bond has like his own thing. Like Brosnan's like got the suave stuff, Craig has the kind of more gritty, like action guy vibe. So yeah, each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm a huge fan of Sean Connery, the original. I think his first 3 Bond movies are phenomenal as well. So yeah, I'm a big Bond guy. And we're gonna do a Bond podcast one day. It'll be fun. But yeah, good stuff. All right, Bert, we're on to your number 3.
Okay, well, I'm going with the Vacation trilogy.
Okay.
Because if you're going to be on that desert island, you got 5 trilogies. I got to laugh a little bit. And in addition to Toy Story, so yeah, Vacation. I think I couldn't find a better comedy trilogy. There aren't a whole lot to begin with, frankly. I recently rewatched the first Vacation from 1983, and it holds up really well. And I know pretty much all of the lines, and because I've seen it so many times, so it's fun to look at those sort of background things. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. It's a Harold Ramis film. The second one is called European Vacation. It's a lot lesser known, and I never hear anybody really talk about it. But there's a lot of funny stuff. I mean, it's more of the same. It's perhaps even sillier, but there's some great setups and funny scenes in that one as well. A lot of quotable lines. And then the third one, of course, is the Christmas Vacation. And everybody's seen that one now. It's come up before, and I think I said I'm almost a little sick of it at this point. I've seen it, I feel like I've seen it dozens and dozens of times. You can watch a movie too much too, but it's almost a 5-star comedy from that standpoint. So yeah, I had to mention the Vacation trilogy.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm a big fan of those films as well. I would say European is the weak point.
Probably,
But I
yeah.
think that the first and third are so funny. Yeah, Christmas, we watch it every year. First one, it's been a little while since I've seen it, but I do remember really enjoying it. So many great memorable scenes and like you said, dialogue that's so quotable. And so
Yeah.
yeah, solid pick, solid pick. That, like you said, there's not a lot of great comedy trilogies. I considered Austin Powers or Naked Gun, but those kind of just fall off, like most
Yeah.
trilogies. Unfortunately, they kind of have at least one or two that are not great. So yeah, excellent choice.
As a trilogy, those, I just will throw this out. They're interesting because all three of them, of course, have Russ and Audrey, but they're obviously each movie they're played by different people, and sometimes the ages are way different. They just
Yeah,
didn't care about that at all, and I don't care either, frankly.
right.
So that's kind
Yeah,
of an interesting thing about that trilogy compared to most of
hmm,
them, where the same character is there. They'll usually like from Batman Begins to Dark Knight, they
sure.
replace the character, but it's a very similar type of actress, age, all that
Yeah,
kind of, you know.
yeah, that's funny. That is kind of a funny thing. I think they bring that up in the fourth in Vegas Vacation. Like,
They're
look at our
different again
kids.
in
I
that
don't even
movie.
recognize them.
Oh,
Something
maybe
like that. There's
maybe
some
they
line like
do.
that.
I even like that one. That one's got some laughs too in it.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Josh, any comments on Vacation or no?
I haven't seen them.
Okay,
Oh,
gotcha.
Yeah, no.
Um, great. So now we're on my three. So my number three is Pirates of the Caribbean.
mm,
Um, Josh, you and I are on the same page here. These are just fantastic movies. I mean, they are spectacular to watch. Incredible visuals. I mean, the effects work
Mm,
is still holds up so well.
yeah.
I mean, the last one was made in '07, so it's pretty incredible
wow.
how well they hold up. I mean, Davy Jones is just a work of art. I mean, that character is incredible to watch. Bill Nye's performance is spectacular. Totally comes through. All the emotion, everything is there. So I still, I mean, to me, I don't know if he's ever been surpassed as far as CGI characters. I mean, Caesar from
Mm,
Planet of the Apes comes close, Andy Serkis, Thanos, maybe, but
Mhm.
Davy Jones to me still is the gold
yeah.
standard for CGI characters in film.
Really.
So yeah, he stands out to me. He's a huge reason why the sequels I think are actually better than the original.
Mm,
Unlike most people, I prefer to watch two and three to one because of how compelling he is as a character, as a
yeah.
villain. I mean, I really sympathize with him as a character. I think his backstory is really compelling. I
Mhm,
think what they do with Will and Elizabeth is more compelling as well because they really have
Mm,
their own. I feel like their own agency in those films more, and they have their particular goals that they're going after. Jack, we get a whole lot more of him and who he is, and it just does a great job of expanding that world. That's the first one is look, it's a great movie. It sets up everything so well. It's a great standalone film. I can watch that one by itself. But I think when we're looking at all three movies, the sequels just make it even better. They kind of retroactively go back and there's these little things in the first movie that are kind of set up that end up becoming big deals later on. And I think that's just really a strength of the writing, um, and Gore Verbinski as a director. I think they all do a great job. The cast is great. Of course, Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. There's no more
mm,
iconic role in movie history. Really, I mean, there's kind of on one hand. I mean, he would be in the top five, I would say, of just a perfect marriage of an actor and a character
yeah.
that instantly became iconic and recognizable. And it was the only character that he had ever reprised the role of. He had never done
mm,
a
Wow.
sequel before Jack
mm.
Sparrow, and he went on to do several more. And the fourth and fifth movies, the less said about them, the better. But these first three are just perfect, a perfect trilogy. It's a full circle story. All the character arcs are resolved. The action is incredible. The music, as you mentioned by Hans Zimmer, is great. So yeah, movies I've watched countless times. I mean, these came out when I was a teenager getting into movies, and I've watched them over and over again with all my friends who were all we were all huge into these films. So yeah, vividly remember seeing them all in theaters, and just had a blast with them, and I continue to enjoy them to this day. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Nice.
Pirates.
I agree on all points.
Great. Josh, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is some of the Mission Impossible films. So for this one, I skipped 1 and 2, and I jumped straight to 3. Skipped Ghost Protocol, did Rogue Nation, and then Fallout. And
Okay,
I'm sure Dead Reckoning Point 1 or Part 1 is going to shake it all up. But the reason I went with these 3, I guess for some of these action films, I have a weird habit of jumping in the middle, like I did with Skyfall. So 3 was actually the first one I watched. I don't know why, but it was. But I remember it's still one of the most intense movies I've ever seen, but at the time it was the most intense movie I had ever seen. And so it just immediately grabbed me. And then just like learning other things about it, like, oh, it's J.J. Abrams' first live action film, and stuff like that. It's just like made me love it. And just the intensity of it, and the bait and switch of some of the things they did there. This one doesn't have as many blockbuster stunts, I should say, as some of the later films, even though there is some amazing stunt work here, like jumping off of a building, which I believe wasn't a real building. It was a fake building, but it was still, he had to jump off of a considerable height because he had to swing. Anyway, so that's why I picked the third one. When I went back after that, because the other ones hadn't come out yet, and I watched the first 2, just compared to the intensity of the third one, the first one just was kind of flat for me. And now I've rewatched it again and liked it more. And the second one, well, we all know about the second one, but I will say it has grown on me as I will say it has grown on me. It's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. I just didn't care for the love story driving the entire movie. But yeah, and then Brad Bird's first live action film with Ghost Protocol, I thought was good. It had a big Burj Khalifa stunt, actually being on the outside of that building for real. And just different stuff like that. The comedy element was really strong there. I love Simon Pegg's character, and I love that there's recurring characters that we get to see, sometimes appearing in some films, missing one, and then coming back. And then Rogue Nation and Fallout, both done by the incredible Chris McQuarrie. They are both fantastic. Rogue Nation especially is just a near perfect film for me. It's just beautiful to behold. It's just paced so well and everything. And then Fallout, he used a different crew, so it has a totally different feel to it. And that's one of the best action movies of all time, I think. There's so many things going on and melding together of the entire series into that. And that one is also one of the most intense movies I've ever seen. And you're like, did they make it? I don't know. And so, yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on those 3, the Mission series, I guess.
Great. So you said for your Mission trilogy, you picked 3, 5, and 6. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. 3, Rogue Nation, and Fallout.
Yeah. So I'm curious why you picked Rogue Nation, because I would have picked I would have picked Ghost Protocol. The reason is because of his wife. Mm-hmm. So his wife is set up in the third film, right? We get introduced to her. The fourth one is where you discover what happened to their relationship. And then the sixth one, she comes back. She's not in the fifth one. So I'm curious why you picked 5 over 4, if it was just because you like that movie more, or is it a story thing?
It is because I liked it more.
I gotcha.
I do absolutely love that story with his wife in there and how they're working in, because like, you're like, well, wait, where is she? She's not in the fourth. She is in the fourth, or they talk about her in the fourth movie. But like in the beginning, you're like, well, wait, wasn't he just like with her? Where'd she go? Now we're in this other thing. And then they, start to unravel what's going on. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then like all the stuff that gets dealt with that between Jeremy Renner's character and was really well done. And then her absence, like, why are we not talking about her? And then like, he kind of seems like he has a thing for Rebecca Ferguson's character. And you're like, wait, no, but Julia, you're married. What's going on? And then you find out why in the next movie. I don't know. I just think that story element through those, I guess 3, 4 films was very well done. But I just picked Rogue Nation because I liked it more.
I gotcha. And it does make sense that you pick Rogue Nation because without the introduction to Ilsa, the sixth one might feel a little weird. So yeah, it's good pick. I just was curious why you picked that one. But
okay.
yeah, all great movies. I'm a huge fan of that entire franchise.
Yeah.
All right, Bert, we're up for your number 2. What is it?
I did consider Zack Snyder's Justice League a trilogy in the sense that, to me, I mean, they're all pretty connected and obviously the same actors and creators. So it's just each film gets better as it goes. But I mean, this is like the ultimate sort of fantasy cross with action and superheroes. Honestly, I can't really envision how these characters, like how a trilogy with these characters could be better. I mean, it's it's presented so well. I mean, there's some quibbles here and there. Like, I don't love the Lex portrayal at all times. I mentioned that before. But I mean, even that film, I give 5 stars. It's just the entire thing is tremendous. It's better each time I watch it. I've said a lot more about it in the past, but it's at my number 2.
Yeah, great selection for sure. Again, the only reason it's not in mine is because he wanted to obviously continue it and he didn't get to. It's really, really well done. And it is, I mean, what he did with his cut of Justice League is very satisfying, especially when you compare it to the theatrical cut. It's very satisfying that we got his full vision, a 4-hour epic, Justice League movie, which is, as a DC fan, I couldn't ask for more. It's amazing. Yeah, right. James Gunn has quite a task ahead of him, taking over the DC universe and creating his own. He's now writing and directing his own Superman movie. So I'm excited about it, especially coming off of Guardians 3. But this is something that I don't think we'll ever really get anything like this again. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And let me be clear. I even liked Joss Whedon's Justice League. I just didn't like it that much. Obviously with what Zach did and came in and added the extra material, changed the coloring and all that kind of stuff, made it way better. It turned it into more like a 4.5 star film instead of Justice League. I probably gave like 3 star. But yeah. What about you, Josh? What are your thoughts on it?
The only reason I didn't put it in my top 5 was because just this, I don't know exactly how to explain it. The sentimentality, it's not really the right word. The other movies have been in me longer, I guess, is what I would say as far as my love of them. Okay. But otherwise, that was close to being included. I need to see Justice League again because that'll probably boost it up a few notches because I only watched it the one time. But yeah, these are all amazing movies, and Cameron has actually ushered in my liking of them because at first I liked Man of Steel and thought BVS was horrible and Justice League was horrible. And then he's like, no, watch the Ultimate Cut. It's better. Yeah. I'm like, sure. Okay. And then I watched it and we're talking about it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Okay. And just each time, like you said, each time I watch it, it's just better and better. And I like it more and more. And I just, the deep mythological aspect to it that Snyder brings, and just all the symbolism, whether it be like Christian symbolism with Superman being like a Christ figure and Batman being like a Paul figure, not believer, and then a believer, like just so well done. And like you said, sadly, I don't think we're going to get anything to this just level of richness, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying. I thought the first time I saw Man of Steel, I thought, yeah, that was okay. I completely missed the boat on that because after Batman versus Superman kind of blew me away. Then I went back and gave Man of Steel another chance, and I was just couldn't believe it. It's just one of my favorite movies of all time. Funny how that works.
Yeah.
Yes, I've converted more to the Snyder cult. Right. All right, on to my number 2. My number 2 is controversially the Star Wars sequel trilogy. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, these movies get a ton of hate. There's vitriol from the fans of these movies. I don't get it. To me, these movies, they first of all, they're just amazing films, just as technical achievements. They're, what's great about this trilogy, I think, is that they really learned from the mistakes of the past, right? Of, here's what the original trilogy did really well. Here's what it didn't do so well. Here's what the prequels did really well and what they didn't do so well. Let's learn from all that and let's create a new trilogy that's continuing the story, but, done better, essentially. I mean, in my mind. Just one example would be the effects, right? I mean, Star Wars is known for the effects, the original trilogy, groundbreaking effects. The prequels were groundbreaking with their digital, effects as well. So the sequel said, well, let's take what's great about the originals, those, creature designs, the real makeup, and, creating these actual creatures on set and, animatronics and all that. And let's blend it with, digital when we need to. And so that's, to me, something that stands out as something that, the sequels did so well, is the effects. They're just seamless. I mean, every scene, I never question, I'm always immersed in it. I'm never wondering, oh, that, doesn't look real, or that, whatever. So they did that really well. Again, it's carrying over the storylines from all 6 previous films that George Lucas created. And it's trying to tie them up in a way that's satisfying. And that's extremely difficult, especially when you're dealing with characters that have been around for decades and that people love and people have spent so much time with. So I think that's where, a lot of the fans don't agree with the choices made with Luke, or, with, the new characters, or whatever. To me, it all works. To me, Luke Skywalker's journey in this trilogy is more compelling than our journey with him in the original films. I really like all the new characters. I think Poe and Finn have a great camaraderie and relationship. I think Rey is super compelling, and what she represents with adoption and with hope, and all these themes that run throughout the saga that are brought to fruition in the sequels. Again, they're carrying over all these themes, all these storylines that I just think feel seamless. It all feels like one big long story. And so J.J. Abrams, I'm a big fan of. I think he's super talented as a director. I think he really knows how to tell stories very well on screen. I think Rian Johnson, of course, who came in and wrote and directed Last Jedi, is incredible as a filmmaker. I think he delivers some of the most compelling movies of late with his Knives Out movies and Looper and all these other movies that he's made recently. I think he's a really talented guy who's, all about kind of subverting expectations. And that's very much what Episode 8 does. And that's why I think a lot of people were caught off guard by it. And, it kind of left a bad taste in their mouth because it did things that people just weren't expecting. I love that. As a moviegoer, I always want that. When I go into a movie, I don't want to be able to predict what's going to happen. That's boring to me. So I'm a huge fan of Last Jedi and what it did. And then Rise of Skywalker, I think really it brought everything to a satisfying end, again, which we've talked about is really difficult. A lot of these trilogies kind of fall off, and by the third one, it doesn't feel as fresh, or it doesn't feel like they really know what they're doing. To me, this one felt like it again carried through all the plot threads, all the character arcs in a satisfying way. It's super fast paced and just a fun movie to watch. I've probably watched it more than any other Star Wars film at this point. Obviously I've watched the originals so many times that you can't really compare it to those, but of the new films, I've probably watched it more. So yeah, all that coming together with John Williams' music, the new themes that he created for these characters, just super compelling. I really just think these movies are some of the best modern films that have been made. I really, really enjoy them, and they carry a lot of meaning, a lot of weight. It's interesting that they're different because they're Star Wars films made by Star Wars fans, which is different. I mean, the originals, obviously there were no Star Wars fans. It was like, we're creating this thing, and then the prequels were all George. So it is interesting to see people who grew up with the movies now get to make these movies. And I think they just delivered something that was emotionally engaging and impactful, and just again technically superb movies that they feel new and fresh, yet they feel like Star Wars. I think a lot of people thought the prequels felt too different from the originals. It doesn't even feel like the same universe at sometimes, but I think this new trilogy blended it all in a way that brought stuff back from the prequels and of course, characters from the original trilogy, to make for, ultimately the best of the bunch. So that's my thoughts on the sequels. Josh, I know you've obviously seen them all. You're a huge Star Wars fan. Bert, have you seen all the sequels yet or no?
Yeah, I have not. I haven't seen the third one of those three. I will say I wanted to throw out. There's probably other reasons people don't like the second one. What's the second one called? Is that Rise of Skywalker? Oh, that's The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And I saw that one in the theater, and I like Force Awakens as well. But Last Jedi, I was just disappointed because I wanted to see, and maybe this happens in the third one. I wanted to see Mark Hamill on the ground, like fighting. And I know we get it like in hologram form, but that to me was just disappointing. And I'm if Liam Neeson at age 89 can do it, then I want Mark Hamill like, out there for real, like throughout the movie. And I just feel like it fell short with that. That was just my own expectation though. But I still enjoyed the film, but it just left me wanting more from that standpoint.
Gotcha.
I think everyone wanted that, which is probably the main reason that people don't like it. Just because it's mainly tied with Luke's character and not liking what they did with Luke's character. And there's other issues that people don't like either, like Rose's character or stuff like that. But I think that is the main one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's my number two. Guys, we're on to our number one. Number one favorite trilogies of all time. Josh, you're starting us off. What is it?
Star Wars Original Trilogy.
Yes.
So
awesome.
It was an automatic. I like it. Like, like for me, who's your favorite superhero? Well, Iron Man. So like, it's almost like it's so much of a given that I feel like I have to say something like another thing would be like, oh, Captain America or something. Just, I don't know. Or in this case, Mission Impossible. Cause I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it just feels like it's so like automatic that it doesn't count. Does that make sense? Like I didn't choose it. It just chose me. But yeah, these films, they're my favorite films that like ever. I remember, I don't remember how old I was, like 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know. Watching the first one and just being absolutely blown away. And I just, from then on, just loved it. And the second one, people say it's even better. Like they're like this for me. I like the second one is like a better film, but it's hard to beat what the introduction to everything was. And then just capping it off with Return of the Jedi. And yeah, and it's my favorite fandom ever. It's my all-time favorite movie trilogy.
Great pick. Yeah, mine too. I mean, this, it's kind of sequel / original for me because these are all 5-star movies for me too. Grew up watching them, seen them numerous times, and yeah, they're just great. Groundbreaking movies, like I mentioned. Just it changed cinema, as a whole. George Lucas and his whole team just did an incredible job. Some of my favorite actors, obviously Harrison Ford's in there, playing a great character. So it was hard for me not to include it. I figured you would, which is why I was comfortable just talking about the sequels because they don't get enough love. But yeah, the original Star Wars trilogy is just some of the best filmmaking out there, and just got to see Return of the Jedi in theaters for the first time, which was a lot of fun. So
nice.
It was re-released for its 40th anniversary. So yeah, good stuff.
You said that was your first two?
No, not my first, not my number one. I'm just, it would have been in the top 5
either or.
If
I gotcha.
I didn't know you were on the podcast. All right, going with Bert, your number one trilogy of all time.
It is The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Awesome.
Man, first of all, it's the quintessential trilogy, at least in my definition, because they filmed all three at once, and that doesn't happen often. There's been oftentimes where they'll film two at once. Maybe they've done, another production has done three at once, but and they do all feel like, I mean, it's one journey, it's like one long film, and I love all the extended editions when I have time to watch them. But yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody's seen these, but just unmatched production quality and scale. Every aspect of production in all three films is top notch. Costumes, casting, effects. The story is compelling throughout. I can't really think of anything anywhere in the entire trilogy that is not tremendous. And so yeah, I got nothing bad to say about it. It's just as a trilogy, I just think that those three are better than any three of any other trilogy.
Yeah, excellent selection. It is easily one of the best trilogies ever made. My wife and I got into quite a heated argument this week over me not including it in my list because she was upset, but she'll be okay. She'll come on the podcast and talk about it one day. Okay. Yeah, these are her favorite movies. She watches them all the time. So by default, I do as well. And I'm not mad at it. Look, I'm not mad. It's just not my favorite. It's not, it's not Star Wars. It's not what I grew up watching. So it's not like my world that I go and get lost in all the time. But yeah, they're tremendous movies. We're reading the books right now. I've read The Hobbit a long time ago, but yeah, they're fantastic adaptations of Tolkien's amazing world that he invented. It's great storytelling, great themes, characters, dialogue. It's all there. It's everything you could want in a movie is there. And like you said, it is all one story. I mean, Tolkien wrote it as one story, and the publisher made him chop it up so they could sell more books. So the films wisely split it up into the three parts, and like you said, shot it back to back, which is crazy that they took that gamble. I mean, what a big risk to spend all that money on movies that you're like, fantasy wasn't like a huge genre at the time. It wasn't, it's not like a lot of even huge like A-list actors necessarily at the time. So yeah, huge risk. I mean, Peter Jackson was not even a big director. He had done like 3 little indie movies, I think was about it. So just incredible the risk they took, but it definitely paid off because they're still, producing these movies today. And, we got the TV series on and all the rest of it. So yeah, excellent movies. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. And thank goodness it paid off because so many, it's been repeated then since then, because I mean, they made their money back like probably 5-fold or something like that. And for instance, Avatar, I mean, would they be making 4 or 5 films in a row right now if Lord of the Rings had failed and was a big loser way back?
Great point. Josh, any thoughts on the Middle Earth saga?
Kind of like you, Star Wars is my thing, so that I didn't grow up on these, but I did read the books and then watch them after, and I didn't get to see. Actually, I take that back. I hadn't gotten to see any of them in theaters until the Return of the King extended edition a few weeks ago for the 25th anniversary, which was really cool. And there was a group of people in there as well. But yeah, some probably among like 3 out of the top 5 best book to movie adaptations ever. Like hold all 3 of those spots probably. Amazing, phenomenal movies. And like you said, with the amount of risk that they took on this, even to set up basically a Hollywood in New Zealand, which wasn't there, didn't exist, is crazy. And this brought Weta out of, or I don't know if was Weta created by this movie? Okay, yeah, by these movies, and they are still doing phenomenal work now. It's basically them and ILM as the 2 big names for CGI work. However sparsely it was used in the first 3 films, unlike the Hobbits. But yeah, the practical effects, just literally, like you said, Bert, there's nothing, you can't point to anything in here and be like, Well, but that, like, there's nothing. They're just amazing, amazing movies. Just near perfect. And even the score by Howard Shore.
Yeah.
I can't really listen to it till driving because it's so calm and whatever that I can't do it while driving, but it is so good. And just you just hear the Hobbit theme
Yeah.
from the Shire and everything, and it's just like all the feels concerning hobbits. That's what it was. It was just so good and groundbreaking effects with like the small and big and like all that stuff they did. Incredible work. And it's gonna be remembered forever. It's just amazing.
Yep, I agree. Good stuff. Yeah, this is one of those. I was just remembering as you were talking, the first time I heard about it was, it was released in 2001, and my parents went and saw it in theaters. And it was one of the only times I remember them coming back. And after they came back home from seeing it, and they were like, "This was a great movie. Cam, you're going to love this movie." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I didn't get to see it until a little bit later when it came out on DVD.
One day when you're older.
Right. Yeah.
Come back to this.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Same.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So yeah, great films, great storytelling, excellent stuff. One thing I wanted to mention about Lord of the Rings is that you mentioned the extended editions. I know a lot of fans are huge on those. I didn't care for them. I felt like the stuff they added was so unnecessary, and it made it so much longer. I mean, I think they add like an hour to each movie. I'm one of the few that didn't. I think the theatrical cuts are so good, so perfect, that they shouldn't be touched. But did you mention you like them better, or you?
Yes,
you do.
Yeah, I don't feel I know what you're talking about, but to me, they may not be essential scenes, but they go right in line with the rest. Like, obviously they're finished, they're well polished,
sure,
and so more of that universe I enjoy. So I'm not saying that you're necessarily it's this critical thing, but there is some stuff with Saruman that's cut out. And in the third film, I think there's several scenes. In fact, he was pretty miffed that a lot of his scenes were cut. Christopher Lee, right? And he said, "Fine, I'll just go do Star Wars."
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, maybe he'd already done Star Wars, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Good stuff. All right, awesome.
Go
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just, I'm kind of right in the middle. I didn't get to see the extended edition for the Two Towers yet, but I saw it for Fellowship and for Return of the King. And I liked the scenes that they added, with the exception of maybe like one or two from each of those. I just thought it just the editing connection was a little odd, or just, I don't know. But I liked the scenes. I'd only seen Return of the King once, and then I saw the extended edition, so I couldn't even tell you, except for the one glaring like edit cut that was weird, what was an added scene. Like, it just flowed smoothly. I didn't even know what was added, what wasn't. But I just think the flow, the complete picture that the theatrical cuts are, at least for probably more the first one is what I'm thinking here, just because I've seen that one more and then saw the extended. Just the complete wrapped up package that the theatrical cut is. I don't know, to me, it's just so complete in and of itself that I don't need the extra stuff. Or just the flow of it and just everything. I don't know. It's just, to me, so perfect in and of itself. So I'm kind of in the middle there. I could take it or leave it.
Almost the opposite of me, because to me, I watched them in the theater, and then when I watched the extended editions, I thought I don't really want them to take away anything, so these are the ones I'm going to watch from now on, especially, like I said, with the Christopher Lee scenes missing. And it does go on a bit. Look at the goodbyes at the end do go on a little bit too long, though. Yeah. Even the theatrical, they do.
Even the theatrical version, I have problems with Return of the King. I guess the multiple endings of like, to me, when he says "you bow to no one," that movie's over. The rest is all like just epilogue, like put it after. But I don't mind it.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, I got you. I understand. All right, folks, here it is. My number one trilogy of all time is, of course, Indiana Jones.
Yes.
The first three are just perfect movies, my favorite films ever. I've watched them, at least as much as Star Wars, the original trilogy. I grew up watching those. Got to see Raiders in the theaters for its 40th anniversary a few years back. Of course, I saw Crystal Skull in theaters. I'm looking forward to Dial of Destiny. These are just perfect adventure movies, action movies. Steven Spielberg, my favorite director, directing my favorite actor, Harrison Ford. It's just everything I could want. George Lucas is even involved here, right? He helped write the story and produce. Just flawless movies, fantastic screenplays. They're really well written. They've got every element of what you could want in a movie. They're fun, they're funny, they're scary. They've got great romance. They've got so many great effects. Again, the effects work in this, I think they don't get quite enough praise. The face melting and all of it is just so well done. The score, of course, John Williams, incredible music again, is so exciting. The stunt work is really good. I mean, the truck chase of it's a real guy under that truck, you're getting dragged behind the truck, all that stuff that nowadays is mostly done with digital enhancements or whatever. The old school kind of filmmaking, the gritty style, they were all shot really quickly. Spielberg had gone over budget and over schedule on all of his movies up until Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he dedicated to himself and to the studio that I'm going to come in on time, on budget. And he actually came in under time and under budget for the first time, which was a big achievement for him. So just great movies that I can watch anytime, again, because they've kind of got something for any mood, right? If I'm feeling like something dark and scary, I can put on Temple of Doom. If I want something a little funnier, I can put on Last Crusade. Raiders has kind of all of it. So just my favorite movies. Have great characters. They're just fun to watch. Biblical artifacts, spiritual themes going on throughout them as well. So very, very huge fan of those movies. Very excited about Dial of Destiny. It looks like it's going to be another great indie adventure. Look, Crystal Skull, we can talk about that for a minute. I don't hate it. It doesn't quite live up to the originals for me, but I think it's fun. I think we've talked about before how they're kind of playing with the whole sci-fi B movie because it's set in the 50s, that different genre as opposed to the 30s, where they were playing with the kind of adventure, treasure hunting kind of serial movie type thing. So I enjoy Crystal Skull. I don't, it's not like the one like, oh yeah, I've got to watch that one. But I don't like dread watching it when I watch through all of them. I always have a fun time with it. I think it's still well made. I think it still has a lot of fun moments in it, funny scenes and, monkeys and gophers and all kinds of fun, silly things that they threw in there. It feels, it feels a little bit like the prequels to me. Like, like the Star Wars prequels, they're not as good as the originals. There's still a lot I like about them. They have this weird, it kind of feels like a different thing kind of, but it still has the DNA of what the originals were. So it's kind of a weird movie, but it's one that I still like a lot. But the first three, again, flawless films for me. I get a big kick out of them. So those are my number one.
Good pick.
Indeed.
I was wondering because you mentioned Harrison Ford it's either when you were talking about Star Wars or when I was talking about Star Wars. Yeah. And then like I thought of Indiana Jones, I was like, wait, did he hear you talk about that? And then, you hadn't yet. It was because it was your favorite one. Yeah. These films are just incredible. They're just so good. And so many, especially so much about Raiders has just become iconic with any sort of treasure hunting or like especially a lot of the like, oh, it's a trap door or like that is like I'm pretty sure that all came from Indiana Jones, or at least was made famous by Indiana Jones, right. With like just uncovering tombs and stuff and traps and stuff like that. Or I guess the pyramids had traps, but not in this. We haven't seen it in this way before until now. And I don't know. Even just like some of the like instead of fighting the big guy, he just shoots him. Like even just stuff like that has just become so iconic, and like you see it in other things, and then like because you see it in so much, it like it almost, I don't know, it just makes it seem like was this really the first time? It almost doesn't make it seem like it is, but it is.
Right.
And then all this other stuff came after it. But yeah, phenomenal films.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of the Real World Podcast, episode 46, our top 5 movie trilogies. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Leave your top 5 movie trilogies in the comments below. We want to hear from you. We're all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Be sure to follow us there. Josh, you're also on YouTube. Film Seed is his YouTube channel. He's also on Instagram, so make sure you follow him. We'll leave those links in the description below. Bert, thank you for joining us again, man.
Of course. Yep. It was great.
And Josh, it was always fun to have you. Thanks for coming back for this episode.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Thanks again. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.